of this AAUN Forum 2025. But before we do that, allow me to recognize our Professor, Prof. Barnabas Nawange, the Vice Chancellor of Makerere University, and also the Deputy Co-Chair for Africa for the AUN. Prof. This shows how our leadership really care about this network. A few days ago, he was in China. Yesterday, he was chairing a graduation, and today he's in Kigali. So welcome, Prof, and thanks for honoring this event. Now we are moving forward to the keynote address, and we could not have it from other than our distinguished professor, Professor of Kosi Marivata. I think you need to have some, space in Ichigare because he was here recently at the Global AI talking about gaps. It was a very interesting conversation, and I'm looking forward to another inspiration talk right now. But Prof, of course, is a professor at the University of Pretoria, where he is also holding the prestigious BSA UP Chair of Data Science, and his expertise lies in the field of machine learning and artificial intelligence, with a particular focus on natural language processing and the development of solutions for local. And they are going to be telling us about the new agenda for African languages and AI, and the impact of AI on higher education. Welcome again to Kigali, and welcome to this forum.
Thank you. All right, thanks for that introduction. I always say that Kigali is one of the places we come a lot because of the different institutions like AIMS, University of Rwanda, and also CMU Africa. So there's a lot of activity that's going on in Kigali. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, okay, it's coming on this side. Okay, thank you. All right. So yes, I'm at the University of Pretoria as the chair of data science, and but I wear many hats, and this is all under the premise that I'm a community organizer for AI across the continent. One of my biggest missions, personal, is how do we make sure that Africans have agency during this AI revolution. So I co-founded the Deep Learning Indaba. I am a co-founder of Lelapa AI, an AI company in South Africa that's Pan-African, and I sit on the board of Partnership of AI that is made up of a number of organizations that are looking to make sure AI benefits everyone. And I've also been sitting from the inaugural steering committee and board of the Lacuna Fund that funds the creation of data for AI and machine learning across developing countries. And I'm pretty sure a number of the universities that are represented here have benefited from that fund that we lead in this space. So I run the Data Science and Social Impact Lab at the University of Pretoria, where most of our work sits at the intersection of natural language processing, or AI, and African languages, and the rest is in what we call data science for society. So how do you make sure that these tools that we work on actually are in the hands of other people who are not us as researchers or scientists? And this then includes governance, teaching, workshops, understanding legal implications of AI and data, those types of things. So I know I come in as a keynote at the end, but I'm a person who likes really us having a common view when we talk about AI or machine learning, so that I can point out a few things in the rest of my presentation. So, one, what's AI? So, by definition, is you have an agent or a machine, it exists in an environment, it takes action to achieve some goal, right? So this is becoming more and more easier to explain. There's one of my daughters looking at our robotic vacuum cleaner in the house. So the vacuum cleaner exists in the house, it can move around, those are the actions. right? It can vacuum, and it can also try to avoid obstacles. And then what's the goal? The goal is to clean the house without running out of battery, right? That's an AI. That's by definition. Now, you will hear this interchange sometimes with machine learning, but machine learning has a specific definition as well. It's a subset of AI. AI is much broader. But machine learning, which is the thing that most of us at the moment are engaging with, machine learning is a machine that learns patterns from data. So, a little lesson here. Let's say you have 2 data points. I'm going to put them on a flat plane. One is red and one is blue. So, the input is where the data point is, and then the output is the color. Now I ask you, and I say, I'm going to drop a data point, a new one, somewhere on that gray area. Can you predict what color it's supposed to be? So the simplest model you can learn in this case is a straight line that sits equidistant between the 2 data points that you had as your examples that you got given by a teacher. So now in the future, anything that falls left of that line, that dotted line, I will predict it will be red, and anything that falls onto the right of it, I will predict that it's blue, right? The world is not that simple. We can increase the complexity of our data. What then tends to happen is that this decision boundary also then becomes more complicated. In this one, anything that's above that line, I'll predict to be blue. Anything that's below, I'll predict to be red. And here, I've also simplified it even further. I'm not taking into account errors. What if one of the blue data points there was actually red and one of the red ones was blue? This is likely still the correct decision boundary because this is the one that has the least error. It's not perfect, but then it's the least error model. Now, we can jump a semester of machine learning, and what you have is these types of decision boundaries where you've now got a deep neural network where you take in as your input, it's a picture, and then this system goes through this deep neural net and then says there's a cat or a dog. And now we're going back into the 2010s, in early 2010s, where these boundaries became more and more and more complex, and we were starting to train them on GPUs. The real kind of big workhorse of the current AI revolution is these deep neural networks that were like 2007 to 2012, like the really big pushes to start building these kind of systems. So what if we don't have labels like the colors that we had? It's fine. Oh, maybe one more point. Like this type of model, almost all of you have on your phone. If you have a phone, you take a picture. Later on, you search for the word cloud in your gallery. You get all the pictures that have clouds. That's what happened. You take millions and millions of images that are tagged of what's in the image. You train the deep neural network, and then deep neural network then can predict what's in the image. Right? That's how that works. Now, if you don't have labels, you can still do grouping where you take your data that doesn't have any labels and then you try to bunch it up into groups or what we call clustering or unsupervised learning. So, we're going to jump another semester. So you've now done a year of AI and machine learning, right? All right, and then we say, okay, let's think about language. So, in the current world of thinking about language models, the ones that have really taken our imagination, what you have is this model, and what it's trying to do is just predict a missing word. So you take in a sentence, you train it by you get millions and millions of sentences from somewhere. You take in one sentence, you take a word out, you put that as your output, and then you take the sentence before with the missing word, and you put a thing that says mask there, and you ask the machine, can you predict what the word that was removed actually was? This is what is called a mass language model, right? All of us really know this for the last 20 years. This is the same thing as having predictive text, right? You start typing and it tries to fill in. So you take the model, and there's the Roberta language model. We've skipped like a semester of natural language processing. There's basis, but this is the intuition. You train these models, and then they learn something about language, because now they can predict every time you give it and say there's a mask, there's a missing word, it can predict what's there. Then after how do you get those sentences? In this BERT paper, we're back in 2017, you take Wikipedia and then a database of books, and then you pre-train it. After you've trained it, you then can take it and then fine-tune it for the last task. So one could be, hey, can you find spam in email? In 2017, what would have happened if you use Gmail, for example, you started noticing that Gmail started now completing whole sentences. You would type and it would start. It was using this type of model. So this is what is called pre-training, and then with fine-tuning at the end. How then do you get to something like a GPT or a Gemini? Then you say, instead of fine-tuning to identify spam, I can now try to get the model to do Q&A. I ask it a question, and then it should answer. So hard, there's actually data sets with hundreds of thousands or millions of question answer pairs. So these are just some examples. Squad from Stanford. Here's Trivia QA that has, I think, 650,000 question pairs. And then here's Alpaca, which also has more and more, like hundreds of thousands of these question pairs where, hey, give me 3 tips for staying healthy as your input, and then your output is what you expect. And then the machine learns these patterns. Right, so we've done now from what's machine learning, we've done some natural language processing, now we're getting to how then do you get the machine to generate an answer. Then the problem, this is like middle 2022, that was a challenge, is that some of those answers sometimes don't really match what humans expect, and this is where this paper that before ChatGPT came out, InstructGPT, was now humans can give you feedback and say your answer is good or your answer is bad, and then it improves the systems that we have now that unfortunately also people trust because they look like they're very authoritative. And this was the last kind of big piece before, this would be July 2022, before that November 30th, 2022, when ChatGPT came out and it became the sensation that it is. The challenges though are bound, as I said, like where do you get data? If you think about like we use, for example, Wikipedia as a proxy, there's Wikipedia in terms of a number of articles written in a specific language. English is the biggest one. It's over 7 million articles at the moment. For the people here, in terms of Africa, the highest is Egyptian Arabic at about 1.5 million. And then if you go Swahili, we're at about 80,000. If you go Yoruba, 33,000 articles. There's Zulu, 11,000. South Lesotho is less than 1,000 articles. We've gone down many magnitudes right, of showing there's not that much data. So you can't build these without having the data. If English takes 7 million for a GPT model, a Llama model that are still making mistakes, just imagine what's happening at the bottom. Right, in those spaces. So this is where we talk about low resource languages. This is the area that I work on most of the time, that you can have languages that have millions and millions of speakers, but do not have tools. I can ask you, for everybody in this room, for your your language that you grew up in, that's your local language, outside English, how many of you have a dictionary on your phone? Just raise your hand in that language. No one. Right, so it's showing you that you can have millions, we speak it, we do it, but there's no tools. That's why it's hard to probably get speech recognition for your language. Those things don't exist. And there's ways to define this. Most of the languages in the world, in this seminal work by Joshi et al., showing that there's a lot of, most of the world's languages are left behind. A few are the winners: English, Spanish, German, French, Japanese, and then you might have some like isiZulu is taken as a hopeful. Afrikaans from South Africa also is taken as likely a rising star. But most of the languages, 90% of the languages are taken as left behind, and they are highly likely going to disappear. Right? So almost less than 0.3% of the languages have more than 97% of the resources. Right? So, to finalize this piece before talking a bit about the higher education, it's another one. So we've talked about maybe the data issue. So if we think about the AI revolution as itself, its current, it's just another cycle. We've had this over and over in the past. We're just in the age of generative AI. It won't be the last, but then we can learn also from the past. There's going to be many ideas, just like any science that will float around, most of them will die out. A way to think about this in terms of AI is to look at preprints. In computing, for us, conferences are the big thing, and as such, there's a huge tradition, especially in machine learning, of releasing as much of the knowledge openly as possible. So you either find that the top conferences, I'm telling you now, the top 5 conferences, all of them are open access from going back to the 90s or the 80s. From the beginning, it wasn't the thing that changed now. That you publish there, when you publish it, the papers are completely free, they're online. At the same time, people tend to, when they submit to the conference before being reviewed, the archive version is available on the preprint server that you can go check on that. So if you look at that, you see that even if you go back 15 or 20 years, there's been exponential growth in AI for 20 years. Right? What we're seeing right now is just the one tip of that exponential graph when you have what the current kind of way of doing AI with machine learning and deep nets and generative AI. But there's been all this growth over time. But there's challenges. So one is compute. To build these models, they're very big, you need data, but on the other side, you need compute. If we go 3 generations ago of GPUs, the graphical processing units that we use to train these models, you see there's a mix of, these are from public disclosures of companies or organizations of how many GPUs they have. So this would be like an iPhone 14 to today's iPhone 16. So these A100 GPUs, Meta had most of them, but you can see there's a mix of blue, which is, hey, I have these GPUs, but they're for me. Red, I have these GPUs, but I rent access out to other people. Or yellow, this is a national resource. It's a high-performance computing center that is used most likely for public research. So you can see there's a mix. So now the systems that were used to train the first ChatGPT, going back to 3.5, are H100s. Right. These are H100s, so we're back now to iPhone 15s about 2 years ago, and you can see the picture change a lot. Right? So you see Meta there says, hey, we have 350,000 of these that we've bought, and then that 350,000, each of the GPUs, just for context, cost you about 30,000 USD. One of them. And now Meta says we have 350,000 of those. Then you need the electricity to power them. They consume a lot of electricity. You need water or coolant to cool them. You need system administrators to keep the supercomputing centers. This is just the GPU, the one piece that goes into the supercomputer. You still need the supercomputing infrastructure. You need the system administrators who will take care of that supercomputing infrastructure, and then you get to the researchers who can actually write code that runs on that infrastructure. It's a ridiculous, it is now kind of created this divide between big tech companies and everyone else. And to the point where nation states have disappeared there. I think Princeton actually complains, and even Stanford say they are so poor. Because they also don't, they're down, I think Princeton has 300, at the time it should have doubled by now, I'm pretty sure. But I said, Meta, one company, 350. Right. For a while, the thing I used to say when I gave the slide was, I don't think for the whole African continent combined, we had more than 1,000 of these. The whole continent, 54 countries. Right. So now we have a challenge of data, compute. There are H200s now, the iPhone 16s. Cassava, during last month's AI summit, announced they are buying 10,000 of them, also for a huge number, and 3,000 have already arrived in South Africa. They're being set up. They will be starting to be available for public renting, like you're renting access as of next month. But then you're still, where are the engineers? Where's the data to build systems in these spaces? Connect back to our languages, as I said, for most of the data for building these systems, whether it's GPT, speech recognition, the data is not, like for our languages, is not there. This was some work for AI4D. We have an AI4D lab at the University of Pretoria. Makerere is there, University of Rwanda is there also for AI4D, and we collaborate. This was a report that came out that shows 52% of the evaluations for language models or building language tools are in English. For the whole African continent, we're at 0.0199%. Showing you that the researchers are not actually evaluating because they're not building things in those spaces. But this also comes from our history, right? The global south, in developing countries, we are affected by history of colonialism. Ultimately, the resources that we have come from this. It's not by chance, it's not by mistake. At the same time, we shouldn't just be saying, hey, yes, the language that we're interacting right now with is English, and we should just let it go with the other languages. These languages or thing is more than just the symbols, it's more than just the words, it's culture, it's indigenous knowledge that we're going to lose, and humanity will have to actually almost relearn, and that's a huge loss for all of us. I then ask, through this, we can look at these challenges faced by low resource languages as akin to a high interest credit card. The more we wait to pay off our debt to our languages, the more expensive it becomes. And you get to a point where you have to declare bankruptcy or liquidate or insolvency. And these are the choices that we're faced with right now. It is not choices we're going to be faced with 50 years from now. People tend to have this thing of no, somehow these things will be resolved. They won't. The more we wait, the more expensive it resolves. The question I ask you, is Gen AI adding to the credit amount, or is it increasing the interest rate? It's either of the two or both. It can't be none. Right, that's where we are today, 2025, in May on the 24th. Right, we're sitting and we're contemplating this in terms of research. And for me, I see this area as not a technical challenge, but an adaptive problem. What does this mean? We all love technical challenges. We're scientists in different ways. You like putting things in a box, stabbing that thing with until you solve the problem. But then at the same time, people are the challenge and the solution. So you can't just think about it abstractly. You have to think about all of the reasons that brings you to the piece that you have at that moment. So we have to treat it like an adaptive challenge. Now, a little bit of a break to address the question I was asked you to think about for this keynote in terms of now these opportunities and pitfalls that we have to think about for higher education. So, yes, AI is transforming the way that we teach, what we teach, how we teach, and how we assess. It's a major, major problem globally, right? But it's also showing that some of the gaps that we didn't take care of from the past are still there, and sometimes they're being amplified and also creating new ones. But we must make sure as higher education we shape AI, right, and not just use it, right? What is it that we want? We need to think about, there's opportunities for research, as I showed you in my area. You want to do new methods, annotate, analysis, simulation, building these new tools. You also want to think multimodally. It's no longer just text or images only. The systems now that do both, where you can now take in images, create new content, all those types of things, do new research that takes that into account. Some of the things that we do, for example, at our university is work on misinformation models that take in images and text that come, especially from social media and in whatever language, and try to predict if the content might be misinformation or not. Right? And you have to move faster. I've shown you that the progress in AI is exponential, and it's been so for over 2 decades. So things change very constantly, right? And even in low resource sets context, we need to move at speed. Yes, in teaching and learning, we can think about how these machines become co-pilots or work with students if they choose to, or helping with tutoring. We have one of my PhD students is working on things like assessment with better feedback that go to students. For example, in our medical school, flipped classrooms and then content that makes sense or in just in time. And there's potential. You don't get this just because AI is there, to personalize things given how students actually might choose to engage with teaching. Assessment, this is the big elephant at the moment that has now become the room. It's not the corner of the room, right? It has become the room, is that now we have to change how we assess, because it is just so much where if it's something where, write an essay or even answer a question, students are just going and just pasting it into an LLM and getting an answer, right? And now, as I said, that we have video models, it'll just be, I can take the whole lecture and put it in there and then answer the pop quiz. That's here, right? It's not coming, it's here. So we need to think about reflective learning, feedback, diagnostics that are much more suited for this reality, right? And then how then do we think about assessing in an AI-rich environment? Yes, there might be band-aids at the moment. On June 17th, for example, my team, we're teaching the natural language processing class in the computer science department, 120 students, the biggest class I've ever taught. Which is it's an honors or 4th year course, and we have to have presentations from all of the students, right? Because we really want to see did they gain something from the semester. We want really to focus on their learning, right? And as such, we have to change how we assess in these spaces. Pitfalls. I think yesterday I was lucky to come in during, thinking about the gendered nature of AI. So thinking about bias and blind spots in these models. I used to be at CSR in South Africa, and I remember our robotics team which was in the same building, they used to say like, oh yeah, if you took off-the-shelf open source robotic software and there was some object detection ones where you show it a video and you take a clip, a slice, and it tells you what's in the image, right? It used to say that our buildings at the government research lab were prisons. All right, there was office buildings, but it was identifying and saying prison, prison, prison. Right? So it's not just bias. We tend to think mostly of these language models, but then also the image models, the video models, the models that are looking at tabular data. They are mostly trained with data that is not coming from here. And as such, just letting them out of the wild and not thinking about that potential is a major, major pitfall, because it can lead to wrong context, leading to wrong conclusions, right? So lack of local data is lack of relevance in terms of the use. And then it also creates this unequal access to tools. I said yesterday at that parallel session, we tend to think, in some ways, oh, technology will lift everybody, will lift all boats. It's a rising tide. It hasn't been so. We have so much evidence of this. When electricity came in, that's exactly what was being said. It will lift all boats. Everybody's development will almost be the same and will be equalized. 2025, there's people on the African continent and other places that are not energy secure. Right? The same thing happened when telephony came in. It will do the same thing. We will all connect the whole world. Information will move fast. The gaps will be closed. Didn't. The internet came in. We said the same thing. Not saying that there's no innovation, there is innovation. The point is to work at it. You can't leave it and say, somehow there's a magical person who will resolve it for us. There are no magical people. Nobody's coming to save us. No one. So you have to work at it and say, what are we doing with the technologies that we shape it? We are not just these users. We shape it towards what we want out of it. So policy and governance and institutional gaps, shared standards are still a challenge across the world on this. Unclear rules in many places about privacy, model use, student data. These are things that as universities you will likely have to get through. And then you need to lead. You need to be thinking about these, providing your insights so that things come into the commons and people see this discussion that is going on inside the commons to come up to the final responses. There is a bigger risk. Whose future is being written or shown, right? AI can limit our imaginations if it only reflects one way of thinking about the world. It must reflect our local languages, our cultures, and what we would like as our futures, right? So researchers must be co-creators and not just users. It's a major thing. For the university leadership here, people like Polly coming to you and saying, no, we are going to sell you solutions A, B, and C. But you should be asking, what about the edges? What happens? How do these systems represent our student and staff population? These are tough questions that have to be asked now. They cannot be asked later. As I said, there's that high interest credit card that we have. Let's invest, yes, collectively in compute, in data infrastructures, build governance capacity inside universities. You'll be asked more and more of these questions. Let's think about the diversity, bringing in underrepresented people. In computing, women and even African populations are completely underrepresented. You can go to some of the top AI conferences, it's a minority, like small. Right, we need to be pushing and saying, let's get to showing our local excellence in our way in terms of where we're going. So what are we doing at our lab at the university, just to provide some ways we're thinking about these things? For one, hey, how do we better do things like evaluations for models? So there's lots of ways to evaluate these things. We're trying to build very Pan-African centric system evaluations because yes, we might not yet have can compete on the building the big model size because we don't have that compute, but then we can guide people by providing tools that allow them to actually evaluate their systems. One example here is on translation. This is some work that came out of our lab last year on collecting Flores. Flores is a parallel sentence data set that was created by Facebook. The F there actually means Facebook in Flores, and it's for low resource translation. So you want to build a low resource translation system. What do? Because I explained machine learning. You give it lots of examples of sentences in one language with the translation in another language, and then the system learns to do some translation. So this one was for low resource languages, and then what we found at our group, that a lot of the parallel sentences were actually wrong when native speakers started checking them. So now what happened is that on one part, the people who were building the translation models were following and saying, we're getting better and better and better at Flores. But then when native speakers went into the data, they were like, actually, you are optimizing for something that's wrong. So this paper, Correcting Flores, was then a study on improving this and changing it and making sure native speakers who are researchers, who are all named in the paper, were there working and then seeing what these issues were and also giving insight on how to improve these things in the future. At the same time, we also train our own language models, right? And it doesn't necessarily need to be large language models. We also build small ones. So here, we've already been through this. We trained one called Puaberta for Setswana, a language that's spoken in South Africa, in Botswana, and in many other places. And through that, one of the things you can do with a small model, it's a couple of 100 megabytes, things like entity recognition. So here's a Setswana model where you can give it a piece of content in Setswana and it can identify the entities like location, dates, people in there, parts of speech tagger in Setswana. This is going back to about 2020, 2021. And then more recently this year, which is about late last month, with another researcher at Clemson in the US, we released also a large language model for Setswana called Pula that now went beyond what we did in 2020, 2021, and now use a Llama architecture in these spaces, and we're still evaluating it compared to the smaller model. And we expect, yes, there'll be improvements, but then the improvements, given how much compute you actually need, is like these ones was trained, for example, with A100 GPUs, and then this one was trained with RTX Titans, which are like from 2020, right? So you don't need as much, but then you can still build something that are useful. We work with linguists, African language specialists to release resources that might be available, but are in, for example, in government creates, a lot of these language resources, they're always stuck in PDF. They're not machine readable. You want them to be easily accessible, but then at the same time, even linguists want them to be easily accessible, right? Not just in PDF. So we, for example, in this project called Marito, just finishing the paper right now, we find all these glossaries, terminology lists that are created by government in South Africa and even universities, and creating, then using, and like transforming them into formats that are easy to interchange, useful also for linguists, but then also easy to ingest into computing systems. So if you needed, for example, an HIV translation model, you would take, yes, you can use an LLM, but you can connect it to a glossary about HIV terms in South African languages, so that you can identify which are actually the right ways to say, to actually state things on those parts. So this data set itself, as it's being prepared, it's published. So we don't wait, right? So you can go to our website and you'll find all of these resources. They're there while we're still writing the paper, right? Because we know it's important for researchers to have access to these resources. This is the biggest project at the moment in our lab. It's called the Africa Next Voices project. We're collecting 3,000 hours of speech for 7 South African languages. 5 of them, 500 hours each. 2 of them, 250 hours each. It is a partnership with us, Data Science Social Impact, Data Science Law Lab at the University of Pretoria, Way with Words, a company that works to help with the collection or recording of people. Support is coming from Gates Foundation and Meta. The data is coming from many, many sources. Sadela, our language resource in the country, Grain SA for the agricultural data, Wikipedia, government, communication, lots of places. And we also acknowledge the Lab AI, our startup, Learn Africa, Masakani, and Karya in these spaces. So when we say 3,000 hours here, I also want to give you context. So we're trying to build speech systems. So what happens is that you want to have the audio plus the text. right? What then happens if you're saying 3,000 and you want diversity in your data? It must represent the population that typically will speak that language, and you don't want repetition as much of saying the same voice. So let's say we now limit every recorder to a maximum of 1 hour. It means you need to recruit 3,000 people who will record maximum 1 hour each of content. And they can't sit there and speak for an hour. So you have to have systems in the background where they can speak for whatever, 5 minutes, 10 minutes at a time, whether they're reading, which is called scripted, or they're given a prompt. They're asked about some scenario. Hey, you're walking into a hospital, you want to talk to the nurse about an ailment. Go, speak in their language, and then they get recorded. And then at the same time, on the other side, there's quality checks of the background noise. There's quality checks on the data itself. This is just the South African one. There's one in Kenya. There's also another one in Nigeria, 9,000 hours in total. Each of the projects is creating 1 terabyte of data. Now we go back to the university and say, where can we store 1 terabyte of data publicly? Meaning anybody can get access to that. We are literally, just with this project, breaking every bit of how even governance is inside the university is being done. We're always engaging with our ICT, the CIO's office, because we keep on coming back and saying, the next thing that we need is X. And then they're like, oh, how do we do this? And even some of this, we're trying to use Zenodo, for example, from the LHC, for storing the open data, and they can't also accommodate 1 terabyte of data. A global major thing. And we're trying to figure out where this is going to go, right? Because there's 3 terabytes for now, and this is going to expand because the ambition, this is the pilot phase, the 9,000 hours of the 3 locations. The goal is to get to 100,000 hours of African speech, right? Africa has about 3,000 languages. So we're still not, even with the 100,000 hours, we would be choosing a subset, right? And in working in this way, I said, like, okay, I work on language, I really enjoy my work, but that's not enough. And as such, at the University of Pretoria, we've started the Data Science and AI Institute, AfriDSAI, to work to expand this to more of the university, more use cases in health, in education, agriculture, but not limiting ourselves to the language thing. My lab will stay, it will continue working, all those things, but now I'm interim director of this institute and working very hard to find partners, funders, ways that we can get this, and then look at a Pan-African collaborations in building these things. So as I said, yes, with the University of Rwanda, we're working through AI4D. With Makerere, we're working through AI4D. Joyce at Nabende at Makerere is a co-supervisor of one of our PhD students who works on systems for farmers. Right, we've been working for years in these spaces of saying we need to break down these walls between institutions or even the borders of the continent. We just need to work and build these systems for ourselves. It's still not enough. Still not enough. So we need to then build very differently as well. Other one, data is about people. How do we protect African populations from just being a cheap data market? That is the big ask now. Oh, can you help with just data annotation? Big companies will send some data under the guise of tech jobs where people are sitting and marking road signs in California on pictures. That is not a IT job. Right, that is not something and at the same time, the reason these things are coming here is sometimes because of the laxer employment laws, where in Europe, in North America, these types of jobs in terms of seeing some of these things, the reason the internet you interact with looks sanitized is because most of it is being hidden from you. And for that to happen, it means hordes of people are hired, and especially here on the continent, to look at the worst of humanity, to train models so that those models remove that content. So how do we work to make sure we have fair work that is safe? Right? And we need to think about this in different way. We don't want to be a cheap data market. We have to move towards also, especially public data being easily accessible and not being closed on, and having those engagements on fair use. We have to think about copyright and in protecting our heritage. And to do that, one other work we released, the Data Science Law Lab and CIPIT at Strathmore in Kenya released this new letter about the open data license that works and says that, yeah, we also should think of how do we make sure when data is being created, anybody who wants to use it should really beneficiate the communities that that data represents. Right? So that we don't get back, people in the Global South know this. You have a natural resource that everybody wants. At the moment, AI wants data. And what they do, they will do everything to get to your data, and then after that, they build tools because they know you don't have the compute, you don't have the engineers, you don't have the scientists, and then they sell you back the product. Same thing is happening. Right? At Lelapa, our company, we also created the CISETU license. That says if you're African, you can use the data. And the models don't need to pay for it, even if you're using it commercially. If you're outside Africa, only use it for non-commercial reasons. If you want to use it for commercial reasons, get in touch with the community that created the content. All right? But we need more. Right? And we have to do it now. Here's Masakani. It's a grassroots organization. We started in 2019. I'll try to finish so that there's that 20 minutes of questions. And we wanted to strengthen and spur natural language processing research. And Masakani in isiZulu means we build together. So it started really on coming together initially in 2019. It was how can we work together across, in a distributed manner, organizations, whether university or not, on translation. But it has evolved into a network of 3,000 plus researchers across the globe who focus their work on African languages. We were here in 2023 at the Convention Center for ICLR. ICLR is like the top AI conference in the world. For the first time, it was held on the African continent. I was one of the program chairs. And the biggest workshop ended up being the African natural language processing one. Right? It actually got the auditorium in the main convention center. If you know how big that is, that was where, because it was such a big thing to do that. Showing, growing from 2029 to 2023, the growth of this community to build these systems. This is the first paper out of Masakani in 2020 and late 2020. This participatory research paper, it ended up winning the first Wikimedia Research Award from Jimmy Wales, the founder of Wikipedia, for democratizing the internet. And through that, Masakani has gone on to keep on publishing, working across all of your institutions. I'm pretty sure you have Masakani people who are engaged or engaging inside there, and won many, many awards. Right? And I will say, I argue, it's the top AI lab on the continent, is Masakani. And it's not in any one university, it's across these spaces. And really, the reason, oh, are we stuck? Oh. Okay, sorry about that. Oh, I think there's a remote connection that's supposed to show. I've got the slides, but they're not showing there. Oh, let's see. Okay, you're going to take that. On this slide, slide 55. Okay, yeah. Yeah.
That was a nice break after too much of information.
Sorry, yeah, I apologize. I'm almost done, yeah. Is the internet dead? Yeah.
While you are enjoying your break, at least I will take only 2 questions because of time after his presentation, so be prepared, the most crucial ones.
Okay, 55, yeah. Yeah, you can. 55. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, do you want to give him that? Okay. Oh, no, I'm saying, can you give him this? Yeah, so that he can. That's fine. Okay, we'll change, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh, is it working? Oh, okay. Yeah, you can go next, next, next. It's fine. Yeah, so you can see how much work has come out of Masakane, and this is globally leading based on the continent. And the next, um, and we've continued on to win more awards in these spaces. And the reason is because of this, of saying that you don't just center the people at the end of the thing, the language technologists, the computer scientists, the mathematicians, the engineers, but you work with everybody from the content creators, linguists, African language specialists, and building on and moving forward on here. Now, a big announcement we made this year, I advised the board, I'm not on the board, is the founding of a new African natural language processing hub through Masakane, which has an initial funding donation from Google.org of $3 million, right? And the goal is to get to $10 million raised by the end of this year. And with that, next. Right, this hub is going to allow Masakane to continue on its mission as it is distributed research. As I said, 3,000 plus members, 150 plus African languages, 70 plus publications, data sets, workshops, conferences, socials, and really moving this forward. Next one. Okay, the last bit, moving it locally. Next, sorry, yeah. In broader AI, not just language, next is the Indaba. Next, yeah. Yeah, okay. Deep learning in Indaba, we started this in 2016, so 10 years ago almost, on saying, how do we make sure Africans at that time become the critical contributors, owners, and shapers of the coming? What happened is that a number of us across the continent came together, looked at what was happening in the public sector, private sector, and even universities when it came to AI, and it was just, look, we need to raise an army for the continent, and we can't wait. Universities are not going to multiply their staff by 10. The public sector is not going to increase their spending or their investments in AI by 100. The private sector is still going to be buying their technology from outside the continent. That still is a major challenge even today, but through the deep learning Indaba, we built up the capacity. Right? The Indaba started, it's an annual gathering conference, started in 2017, the first one at VETS with 300 people. The biggest so far has been Accra. In 2023, we had 800 people, 3,000 people had applied to come. It's now the African AI research gathering in the space. That's the main annual meeting. But we also have local Indaba X's. So there's an Indaba X Rwanda, for example. There's an Indaba X Uganda, Indaba X Kenya, which are smaller conferences per country. And last year, we finally hit the milestone of 47 Indaba X's in 1 year. What does that mean? Out of 54 countries on the continent, we didn't make it to only 7. And it means also almost every week of the year, there's an Indaba X happening somewhere on the continent, reaching tens of, way more than the annual gathering itself can. Last year, we were in Dakar in Senegal. That's the picture of as many of the people we could get in, and we had 600 plus people, 50% of them being women. Yesterday at that session, you build different. If you have a chance to start from scratch, you work that your community represents who your people are, right? And there were 200 travel grants. This year, we're coming to Kigali in August, and we're aiming for 1,000 participants in this venue. With 400 students sponsored, coming from the continent to come, from all over the continent to come here with the University of Rwanda. So we're very thankful to the University of Rwanda for taking on this mission as a board member of the Indaba in the spaces. And this is actually partly a continuation of a tradition inside machine learning that where there's gaps, there have been grassroots organizations that have come in. The Deep Learning Indaba, Data Science Africa was started in 2015, 10 years ago, in Kenya and East Africa. They've gone on and continued building this capacity and capability for the continent over the years. This year's Data Science Africa is in June. It's in University of Ibadan, right, on that part. And you see other countries also learn. Kipu, that's down there, was started as a copy of the Deep Learning Indaba, but for South America. after they saw what we were doing on the African continent, now Kipu, they also have a annual big gathering. America's NLP, you can't see it, that's where my picture is. It started as a copy of Masakani to say we can do the same thing for South American languages. And I'm very thankful for all of our collaborators. I'm sorry Makerere is not here, it should be, because we work very closely with the AI lab there. I think it was just an oversight, I was just seeing. And very thankful now we will be adding University of Rwanda through the AI4D, and I'm looking forward also to engaging with the students here after today's festivities before I go to the airport. And also very thankful for all of the funding that we get from that allow us to do the work that we do at the University of Pretoria. And I'm really looking forward to, two questions, and then I'm also here until the end of our sessions today before people go off in the afternoon. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. This was wonderful. You know, from the biases, the opportunities, the lack of data, the lack of infrastructure, but also the hopes and opportunities that are available. Let us shape it. So, 2 questions. For the interest of time, just let's have Prof.
All right, thank you very much, Professor, for your talk. I just wanted you to talk a bit more about how we should respond, rethinking assessments, AI. So I'm thinking in my head, should we, for example, go into looking at what our students get from Gen AI to respond to questions and then engage based on those responses? What kind of tooling would we need, for instance? So just a bit more about how that can happen.
So since the VC, so that means it will take free. So, but let's have you, VC. So we'll take another one. So VC?
Okay, yes, I want to say that this is the most comprehensive presentation I have ever had on AI. I've understood so many things, and I have understood now the implications of not investing in AI. In 2019, as I have normally said, I attended a meeting organized by UNESCO in Beijing. And I realized that the majority of the people in the room were Africans. I don't know why all of us Africans were taken to Beijing. And then in the end, the organizers said, we were there to answer one question: will Africa be left behind again? And the conference was on AI in Beijing. Now, can I also ask you the same question? Will Africa be left behind again as far as AI is concerned? And if we are not to be left behind again, what do we need to do? The second question is, I didn't realize the implications for African languages, and maybe for languages generally. From what you said, are we not going back to speaking one language? Because the Bible says we all spoke one language at one time until we started misbehaving and God made us speak different languages. But it seems with the development of AI, many languages will disappear. Are we not going to speak one language in the end?
Okay.
Okay, the last question, yes, from
Okay.
Dr. Priscilla.
Good morning, Priscilla Mensah from Nelson Mandela University. I think one of Africa's assets is its young people, and I like the graph that you displayed that showed the exponential growth in AI. And my question is linked to Prof. Barnabas's remarks as well as Chris's remarks. Chris' presentation yesterday showed African countries investing 400 million, over 400 millions in AI tools, AI weaponry. And so my question is, how do we leapfrog? Because at this point, we are behind the curve. How do we leapfrog through, you mentioned grassroots movements. It's wonderful to see the work that's happening with Setswana, but we have multiple indigenous languages. And so how can we ensure that we invest in our youth and make sure that we don't lose this opportunity?
Sure. I think I'll go backwards. Yeah, so starting there. So One of the things that happened at Jomo Kenyatta University when we had the Indaba in 2019, it was then in Nairobi. We typically with the Indaba, it's about now almost 7 days. So it's like a whole week. And there's tutorials, I think at the beginning with keynotes. There's Africa Research Showcase. All people get to show posters. This year for the first time with the University of Rwanda one, there will be proceedings that are archive proceedings. So this is a milestone that people can now publish at the Indaba. But at that one, for the poster sessions, what had happened is that there had been a mix-up and we didn't have the poster board so that people can put the posters on there. And I remember now young people, as I say, saying, no, we were like, as organizers, we were tired. It's been a road just to get to there. And now we're like, oh, what do? We need to put up posters this afternoon. And for many, many of the young people, the Indaba is one of the few places where you can engage very seriously about AI research with your peers. Those young people asked and said, like, okay, where are these poster boards? Oh, they're on the other side of the campus. Is there a vehicle? Oh, yeah, there was some construction happening. There's a loading truck that is somewhere. They jumped onto that truck, directed the driver, picked up those poster boards, put them on the back of the truck, brought it back to the main venue, set up all of the poster boards, no delay in the thing. And that's when I knew personally, we don't own this thing. It is young people who are driving it. I have no idea about the preparations at University of Rwanda. I'm just told, I'm sent and said, please talk to the VC, ask him if there's anything that is required that we might be missing so that it can go back to the young people who are the ones who are leading the organization. I'm just a trustee on the board. I look at the vision and the mission and say, are the people who are doing the preparations doing the thing that is connected to those things? And that's the part here, that the reason we had to do that going back to 2015 and 2016 is young people were already working in these spaces. They were looking for vehicles to really show that they can do this work. We have another challenge. These young people finish their master's, their PhD, they're not being absorbed. Whether it's in academia, in the private sector on the continent, they end up moving to Europe and North America. That's another piece of the puzzle that we need to think about. On the part of left behind, I say the thing, in the analogy of we all want a slice of the cake, that I think is done. That is long gone. I think it's also the wrong way to think about it. This then requires that you think about building huge computing infrastructure in the same way that the point is to decide what is it that Africa wants out of the AI revolution and how do we work towards it for ourselves, not for an international benchmark. If we do that, it doesn't matter whether people say you're left behind or not. You know why you're doing X and Y. And that's been the major challenge that we've had in the past. We don't define, these are the things for us that are important. It might be language. It might be better things for health. It might be, and it probably is a mix. Define them, go for them. Still, the point about the 400 million, it's nothing. I just calculated now, that Facebook investment on the GPUs is $10 billion. So the continent saying all of our investment collectively is $400 million. One company is $10 billion just to buy the machines, not all of the other costs that comes in. That's what I'm saying. If you use that, then you say, no, we're doing. But we do have a reference. The AAU benchmark for investments in research, all research on the continent is 1%. No African country meets that. No African country. Right? The largest in quantum is likely South Africa, but we're at 0.6%. I think Kenya, Rwanda is 0.8% of their GDP, but in terms of how big the economies are, South Africa is the largest one. But we're now suffering with the NIH money leaving because most of our medical research on the continent is basically sponsored from outside the continent. It's creating lots of chaos. I think I've had probably 2 grants. I'm not in health, but connected to NEH, Endowment of Humanities, cut in these spaces, right? So these are the things. What is our direction? That's maybe another thing I want people to, what is our direction? Last one on the thing. I've started integrating with some of the things where students, yes, I become very clear. For this assignment, you're not allowed to use an LLM. And then at some point, I then say, oh, okay, you've done it. You've done peer grading as well. You've looked at each other's work. For this one, you are allowed to then use an LLM to evaluate your work, and you compare it against your peers, and you compare it around your own self-assessment. Because you're trying to show them how to use the tool in a way that enhances their learning, not just to say, it replaces my learning. Right? There are still going to be more, and I think at UP, University of Pretoria, they say, it's just, these are the things that are in front of me, that's how bias starts. I'm not saying there's no other, we're having the Flexible Futures Conference, and these are the things that we hope that more and more of the staff are engaging on saying, it is not going to be easy. I think 2 weeks ago, there was a big article in New York Magazine about how the whole higher education system in the US is just being turned upside down. Because people are identifying that, nope, it's done. Question and answers online, it's done. At the same time, I think our university, hopefully I don't get into trouble for this, but I'll say it, which we had warned in 2023, the systems that we normally use for plagiarism detection, who quickly said now they can also detect AI, they don't work. And I remember warning them and saying look, if my job every day as a researcher is to create systems that work to better represent our languages, and on another side somebody saying, I'm detecting if this was written by a computer, something's going to give one day. Right? Can you see how that goes? Yeah, at the beginning, yes, the computer-generated text looks clumsy. Over time, it looks more and more and more and more and more and more natural, to the point you won't be able to distinguish between a human and a machine if you use, I'm reading a piece of text. So then we must be very careful in then saying, oh, this student used AI-generated content in their assignment. As such, they're being suspended and all those things. Please do not do that. I know it's going to be, do not do that, because there's higher and higher likely chance that you're wrong.
Prof, let's engage on this discussion in the next session, which is going to be about revolutionizing the way of learning using AI, and of course, we look forward to continued intervention on these questions, and of course, Prof, of course, is also here. So, Chair, for the next session, and all the participants, but before that, we...
Shake your hand.
Good morning once again. We are happy to be the second presenters of today, and we are going to continue from where the first speaker was stopping. Actually, I want to thank the organizers of choosing this topic to come at the end after others, because whatever we are thinking, we need to think of revolutionizing the education. How do we assess? How do we teach? He mentioned so many things, and what we need to understand is that AI is on our fingertips. Whatever you are doing, you are having the smartphone. So the smartphone, starting from unlocking it when you want to do something, is based on the AI. You use your fingerprint to unlock it. You go to WhatsApp, is based on AI. You go to YouTube, is based on AI. You go to Google Maps, is based on AI. So there is no way to run because of AI, because it is on our fingertips. Yesterday, we saw so many applications, starting from supporting the food chain sustainability. We went on the security, how the technology is now changing the security. In terms of education, we have so many applications, and now we are enjoying the beauty of all those applications. He mentioned ChatGPT, which is the large language model actually, which is commonly known than others. It is the one being used by so many people. We have the Grammarly to check the grammar mistakes. We have the plagiarism checkers he mentioned. All those are applications in education. We have the online proctoring systems, which are there to support us in education. We have the AI intelligence tutors, which can help us in education. So all those are the beauty of AI in education. All those innovations are having, of course, the challenges. Since 2022, when we saw the breakthrough of large language models like ChatGPT, as I mentioned, there have been so many academic misconduct and dishonest. When you go to some universities that have done the research on the academic misconduct in the universities, like you can find, like one university was reporting that they had 1,000 cases of cheating. If you go to Springer, the publisher, you will be finding more than around 3,000 publications have been retracted in last year. So they were retracted because of academic misconduct, of using AI, and sometimes they forget to use their brain in addition to AI. Now, with all those in mind, every one of us understand that is very important now. Education is there, it will remain there, and AI will be there. So how do we marry the two? In order to keep the academic integrity in the presence of artificial intelligence. To continue from where our last presenter stopped, we are having other two important presenters here in the house. They are practitioners. They are going to help us understand this from the practical point of view. They share the experience they have gone through. Let me call my friend, Professor Kanayo. You are welcome, please. Professor Kanayo is a professor who is having more than 25 years in the academic journey. He has done several research and is having publications and grant management in economic-related research. The second panelist is Mr. Sam from Curtin University. Prof is an academician who is most related to industry. You are welcome.
Good morning, colleagues. I want to thank the organizers for the invite to share a few remarks on this subject, which I think is not just topical, but contemporaneous, shaping the future of education, artificial intelligence in learning. For my presentation this morning, I want to take a cue from my colleague yesterday, Professor Margaret, that raised some pointers often neglected in the discourse of AI during one of the parallel sessions yesterday. Across the globe, technology is redefining how we acquire knowledge, and AI is at the forefront of this transformation. So this morning, my question for the forum is this: learning using AI in Africa, is this a catalyst or a divider? Is it a catalyst or a divider? And for us to preface our discussion, I'd like to drop a line definition. We refer AI as automation of complex tasks that historically human beings performed. What do we know? AI is not just a futuristic concept again. It's already changing how students learn, how we teachers teach, and how our institutions operate. The global education landscape faces persistent challenges, and AI is trying to offer transformative potential to address these issues. However, while some countries like Australia has effectively integrated AI into their system with robust frameworks, Africa is still looking for innovative, low-resource solutions to use the benefits of AI. And this takes me to the big question. Yes, in Africa, the promise of AI is profound. Adaptive learning platforms, personalized curricula, data-driven education policy making. However, the concerns about reinforcing inequalities, infrastructural limitations, and ethical challenges persist. And we have key statistics to support this. In sub-Saharan Africa, 86% of 10-year-olds cannot read, and 97.5 million children are not enrolled in school. The African Development Bank Group projects that by the end of this year, at least 263 million young Africans will lack economic opportunities, partly due to a lack of digital skills. Africa has the lowest internet usage rate in the world at 37%, compared to a global average of 67%. It is estimated only 40% of African youth aged between 15 to 24 years have internet access. While we don't have gender disaggregated data for youth, it is still estimated that 32% of women have internet access compared to 42% of men. In 2022, the International Telecommunication Union estimated that only 40% of Africans had access to the internet, with this figure being even lower in rural areas. Africa has the lowest rate of access to electricity globally, with just over 40% of the continent's population having access. Africa ranks the lowest in internet penetration at 37% compared to a global average of 67%. Now that takes me to the position. We have three groups here, those on the positive side, those on the negative side, and those in between. On the positive note, they've argued that AI could bring access and reach to Africa. They've argued that personalized learning will occur because of AI. They've argued about teacher augmentation. And they've argued that predictive analytics will support educational planning in Africa. And we have two key examples for this. From Tanzania, Ubongo uses AI-enhanced TV and mobile content to deliver early childhood education. And from South Africa, TOU integrates AI with online learning for university-level education delivery. On the other side, there are critics that say AI will deepen the digital divide in Africa, and are looking at the limited access to electricity and broadband in rural areas. They are looking at many schools lacking funds for devices and software licenses. They are looking at cultural and linguistic misalignment because AI tools fail to reflect local languages and pedagogies, and also looking at the bias of algorithms. And we have evidence. UNESCO 2023 warns that 89% of learners in Africa lack access to digital devices because AI tools require high data usage, unaffordable in many rural African settings. And that's the question, is it going to be a catalyst or a divider? And it takes me to the challenges we all know, the risk and ethical considerations, bothering about data privacy, digital divide, teacher resistance, bias and over-reliance to academic integrity. Now, what are the main debates for African countries? Number one, will AI provide access or equity? And the question is this: will AI democratize education access in rural and undeserved communities, or will it reinforce exclusion where digital infrastructure and electricity are lacking? I don't have. Relevance and readiness. Are African education systems, teachers, and curricula ready to meaningfully integrate AI? This forum should try to answer this. Innovation versus ethics. How can Africa adopt AI in education while safeguarding data privacy, cultural values, and preventing algorithmic bias? Global models. Should African education system adopt AI education models or develop context-specific, culturally relevant AI solutions? And the last one, on commercialization. Will AI in education serve the public good or become a space dominated by private sector interests with limited accountability? So the debate for us in this forum should be, how do we emphasize Africa's agency in shaping AI's role in education, not just taking them as consumers of important technologies, but as co-creators of ethical, equitable, and empowering digital learning systems tailored to the continent's realities. My take on this: the debate on AI in African education reveals both promise and peril. Rather than a binary choice, we must strategically shape AI adoption to promote equity, quality, and inclusiveness in learning. A lot of recommendations, ranging from infrastructure investment, public-private partnerships, localized content and language, active framework, international collaboration. Do we have a future? Yes, we do. And both continents can look at each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Then, before you leave the stage, I'm having one question for you. Among the strategies you talked about, what is, if you were to pick one for Africa to adopt AI in education, which would be the one?
Thank you very much. There is no straight answer to this, but I'll be looking at issues. I mentioned something about access and equity, and I'll be looking at policymakers and stakeholders working on connectivity gaps, affordability of devices, linguistic inclusivity. When it comes to relevance and readiness, we'll be looking at curriculum reform, teacher training, institutional capacity, policy frameworks. When it comes to ethics, we should be looking at governance, ethical frameworks, and local context adaptation. When it comes to localization, we should be talking of indigenous knowledge integration, multilingual AI tools, and local content creation. These and many more will help us in seeing how we can use AI in learning in Africa.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Prof. Sam, you have been teaching for more than 30 years. We are happy to have you here, and we want now, as a practitioner, how do you manage your class, particularly in the presence of artificial intelligence? When we talk about managing the class, now we are going to talk starting from the lesson preparation, delivery, up to assessment, which is the critical part. And I know everyone here is willing to hear from you. How do you uphold the academic integrity?
Thank you very much, Professor Oliver. I think I'll make an attempt to answer these questions, all right? Can we please have my, I think I can. Sorry guys, half of it is gone. Okay, so basically, sorry, he introduced me. My name is Sam Cholil, and I am a member of the School of Management Marketing team. And when we decided to have this presentation, David and I had a discussion, and David said, let's keep this session to 10, maximum 15 minutes, so that we make it a Q&A session rather than just me standing here and doing slides, right? So having done something in the classroom, I'm hoping that I'll go through my presentations really fast, and then we'll open the floor to questions, all right? So this is what my agenda looks like, very simple one. It is about what I do in the classroom, how I have changed the assessments, and then the use of AI and what I've learned from it, all right? So this is the current stage, right? Today, we know, and there's enough literature out there to prove that AI is here to stay. But a year ago, things were very, very different. Just 1 year ago, around this time, the entire university, and I'm talking about Curtin University, we were grappling with what to do with AI usage. Students were being punished, all right? We were playing, I don't know if you guys played when you were kids, the game of police and thief, right? So the academics were like the police running behind students who have come up with misconduct cases, all right? And Turnitin, which we use at Curtin for tracking academic misconduct and plagiarism, now has a way to look at AI similarity, all right? So students were using Grammarly, students were using Quillbot, students were using AI tools, but Turnitin did not show what their AI match index was. Only us academics got to see it, and as a result of which we were chasing students, and it was not just students and academics, it was also the admin staff out there who had no idea. When I say admin staff, I'm talking about the various people who are involved in academic misconduct and things like that. We have had cases where students have held the results have been held for 6 months because of suspected plagiarism, all right? So what happened was, a few of us, me included, we decided to go and plunge into using AI in the classroom. And and with her permission, I've just reproduced something Professor Harleen Hein, our VC, said yesterday: be ahead of it rather than running away from it, right? So that's exactly what we did. And what I thought today was, I'm actually going to share with you a 1.5-minute video clip of me in one of my classes, workshops, all right? Sorry, Benjamin, if you can get the video started, please. So I want you guys to just have I suspected technology would be a culprit, so I put it on YouTube, but even that doesn't seem to be running, looks like. Okay. So I want you guys to just have a quick think through of what the sections of the business plans are. Can we stop it for a while, please? Pause it. Yeah. Now, this is my undergraduate class. I teach entrepreneurship, all right? And one of the classes is, towards the end of the semester, is about writing a business plan. Now, put yourself in the shoes of an undergraduate who's got no idea what to do when it comes to a business plan, because he or she has never done one before, all right? Now, what happened in the past was that there is, I don't know if you guys have heard the term blank anxiety. You're totally blank, you don't know what to do, you're stressed out in class, and you don't want to face the lecturer in front. So that's what we call blank anxiety, all right? So with AI, what happens is that this blank anxiety doesn't exist anymore, right? So if you look at a typical classroom in Curtin University back in Perth, Australia, the diversity is fantastic. We've got Australians, of course, as students. We've got people from all countries of Asia, from China to Singapore to Malaysia to Indonesia, you name it, they're there. We've got students from Middle East. We've got exchange students from the US and from European countries. We also have a few African students. Last year I had 2 students from Botswana, very, very good students. So in an environment like that, when students come from different cultural backgrounds, and the fact that English is not a first language for a lot of them, it is very difficult to get participation in class, and that's what leads to what we call blank anxiety. You're blank, you don't know what to do, you want to take your face away from the tutor or the lecturer, and you then get into your mobile phone and get into Facebook or whatever, and the whole class is distracted, all right? So the first learning I had is that allowing the use of AI tools, Gen AI especially, in the classroom takes this blank anxiety away. Can we start the video again, please, Benjamin? Plans are. So I want you guys to just have a quick think through of what the sections of the business plans are. You guys use DeepSeek all the time. Any favorite AI tool? ChatGPT. And anybody else? Copilot. Okay. Do you find Copilot? Can we stop, please? You can run it from here afterwards, right? I don't want the whole thing running all over again. Right. Now, this is a very important thing. Right from the time I've been here yesterday, we've been only talking ChatGPT. I've been talking to a lot of academics in the room. Everyone says ChatGPT. Yes, 90% of us are used to ChatGPT. But look at my classroom. There's people using DeepSeek, all right? There's people using, that's one of my best students. He swears by Microsoft's, Copilot. There's people using Google's Gemini, all right? There are students using a lot more other tools, and I've got a list of them in my presentation. So as academics, I think we need to be at least aware of a number of these tools, at least the free versions, all right? Because when you give a prompt, to a chat GPT, and you give the same prompt to maybe Microsoft's Copilot, you might get different results, right? So as academics, I think one of the first learnings we need to have is at least play around with a non-paid or a free version of these tools so that you get an idea of what's on the mind of the students and what they're using, right? So that was my first learning. Can we continue with the video, please? You find it the best one, yeah. Yes, sorry, can we stop it? Yeah, that's all I wanted to show you. See, this is what I meant. The minute you say, ask them to do something in class, they are engaged. And that's one of the biggest things I've found to be useful, because you tell them, go and find, and in this case it was, go and find the sections for a proper business plan, all right? Immediately, the students have a mechanism to get information. That doesn't mean they're going to use that information and that's what the assignment is all about. But based on that information, the next part of the assignment was, come out with a section for your own business and then present it in class. All right? So this is one of the key things we've learned, that AI is not a mechanism to cheat or anything if used in the right way. All right? So that's as much as the video is. I'm just going forward. Sorry, guys. All right. So that was in the classroom. The next one is for assignments. So our VC spoke yesterday and said, like all universities and Curtin is also in the process of adopting and coming up with AI policies and things like that. So somewhere mid last year, they came up with what is called a generative AI disclosure statement. All right? So this is to make it a little ethical. This might not be the final version, but we, a few academics, allowed the use of AI in class, Gen AI, for the assignments. And assignments all had to have a mandatory generative AI disclosure statement. On that, we asked them what were the tools they used, why did they use it for, and we actually asked them to copy and paste the actual prompt that was used on the tool. All right? And then we had a session which said, please let us know how AI has helped you, right? Now, we are collecting this information to do some research. I'm working with some of the people to write some, to do some research on the usage of AI by students. But that apart, what I wanted to show you guys is that this is the student declarations from one of my assignments. So this is very interesting. We also need to understand that not all students want to use AI. I have this student who said that she did not use any generative AI tools. And why was that? Because relying on AI is not conducive for long-term development. So please don't go on an assumption that because you allow the use of AI in class, that every student will go and embrace it. All right? Now, I'm not just going to read through everything, but these are some of the actual statements. ChatGPT seems to be one of the most popular ones, even at Curtin. And this is what I was saying. As English is not my first language, making sense of what I'm reading is challenging, and I need to be able to understand what I'm reading, right? So this clearly shows that if you allow students to use it in the right way, I don't think they, oh gosh, sorry. Sorry, guys. All right. So some have used Grammarly for marking their assignments or correcting their assignments. And one interesting fact about Grammarly and Quillbot and others is the fact that they also use AI in the back end. All right. Students didn't know that, nor did we. So we allowed students to use Grammarly, and the AI match rate was so high that we didn't know what to do. So Curtin's now taken another step. There is a Curtin's version of Grammarly, which is available for students to download. And if they use that, the AI index will not be very high, right? So these are steps that universities are taking, and we as academics also need to abide by it and make sure that we have a very different kind of classroom environment. So having done this for a while, I thought I'll just share some reflections with you. One of the first things I feel was increased engagement in class, because students don't feel lost anymore. You can ask them any question and they will find an answer, because they are more than happy to, at least as of now, to get into their computers or their mobile phones, whip up their favorite ChatGPT, Gen AI tool, or Gen AI tool, and then get an answer. For us, faster completion of tasks, if I say it's 10 minutes for you to find information and another 10 minutes to put it together and come and present in class, they do it in that 20 minutes. In the past, after the first 5 minutes, they lost interest. All right, so this is one of the key things I found. And of course, from the students, I mentioned this earlier, reduced anxiety. That's one of the key things, because that's related to increased engagement in class. Because if the students are not anxious, they're more than happy to participate. All right? Of course, it's not without challenges. There's too much reliance on AI. I had a student, I think he was from Pakistan. He actually showed me his phone. He had a paid version of ChatGPT, I think it's ChatGPT, and he spoke to it and said, give me a poem in Urdu. Urdu is the language they speak in Pakistan, and it actually spat out a poem, right? So you don't want to be totally addicted to AI for every little thing in life, right? The second thing is ethical concerns. Where do you draw the line, right? How do you define, how do you judge whether they've actually given you a right, the work is not totally spat out by AI and things like that. Of course, we know as we speak that universities are putting together a lot of policies and things, so hopefully these things will be addressed. And the biggest problem we have is that clear guidelines are missing. For us as academics, for students, and for the people who are sitting there and judging whether the academic misconduct has really happened. So we don't have clear guidelines as yet. Some of the recommendations, my biggest one is that sadly the reality is that we really need to review and redesign all our assignments. Because till date, if you follow the traditional way of doing your assignment, you can just assign a tool to do it and it'll spit out your results, right? So that's one of the key things I have learned, all right? The other thing is that I really feel universities should take a very deep step in making sure that academics as well as students are trained. I think it should be mandatory, because if you go to Google and just key in that word prompt engineering, right? A prompt is what you give the tool, all right? And it's an entire subject on its own called prompt engineering, all right? You'll find videos, you'll find so many, mechanisms in which you can improve your prompt engineering. But I would think we need to make sure, the academics need to be trained on that. Only then can we be ahead of the students, because they're all Gen Zs. They're much faster with technology than us. They understand things faster. So if we are not ahead of the curve, it's always going to be like, oh, the students don't find value with what we do. So I think we need to have a lot of, workshops and other things which will help academics as well as the students. Now, I've kind of finished my session. That's all I had, because I want you guys to ask questions if you have any. But the reason I put these tools is that I'm not sure if you guys are using these, but it's not just ChatGPT. This is just a set of 7 tools that most of my students use. On the right side, the reason I put this on is that I'm not sure if you guys have used Perplexity. It's a fantastic tool for summarizing your academic journal articles and things like that. And then the great-grandfather of that is a tool called Elicit. If you just go in and give it a, let's say, a research question, it'll go and find out very good, valid articles, spit out a PDF on some information and things like that. So if you haven't used this before, please try the free version. They're fantastic. Claude AI, I would say it's in between the two, because you can use it generally, but it's very good for those who want to do writing. So Claude, I find, is very good when it comes to writing. So that's the only reason I put it for you guys. So in conclusion, I just want to spell out 3 takeaways for this session of mine. The first one, I think it was discussed earlier. AI is the elephant in the classroom. There's no doubt about that, all right? But I think the best way to handle this is not run away from it, but face it head on. And this is what I wanted to show you. Ride the elephant rather than running away from it. That's my second takeaway, all right? The third one, I just put it in yesterday. I was sitting through a presentation where Susie was talking about the old thing, publish or perish in academia, all right? And then when it comes to AI, for me, I think it's for all of us, for AI, it's cherish or perish, all right? Adopt it. If not, we're going to be left behind from the students. So that's all I have, and if you have questions, I'm more than happy to share my experiences with you. If you want to connect with me, you can use your excuse me, mobile phones, and that's my that's a QR code which has my email ID. And please feel free to send me emails. Some of you have already done that, and I'm more than happy to respond to you. All right, guys, thank you so much.
Thank you, Prof. This is very insightful. You mentioned that we used to run behind the students, then because now they are using various tools, so that is the surveillance, right?
Yes.
So what we need to think is of now, how can we make sure that our learners are having the sense of understanding that learning is important for them? Yeah, yes. That's very important. You mentioned something which is crucial, and I know, as I told you, everyone is waiting for us to talk about this issue. I want that you can elaborate more on the assessment as an integral part of education.
Yes.
Yeah, you are going to be reflecting on the questions. Number one, like you said, we need to redesign. Which tips can you give us to redesign the assessment?
Okay.
Like that. And among the assessment activities, we are having so many. So which one, in your reflection, you found they are working than others? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I can address this from what I have done for for the subjects I teach, right? So years ago, I thought one of my assignments was very good because I teach entrepreneurship at the undergraduate level, and we had an assignment which was an annotated bibliography because the research and literature on entrepreneurship is still evolving. So I wanted students to at least have 3 to 5 papers for each topic for the first 5 weeks, find papers, give a bibliography of it, and then that was the assignment, all right? Now with AI, and I think you guys should go home and try this, go and find an article, and on the article is that link, the DOI, all right? Copy and paste that onto your ChatGPT or any tool and say, give me a 200-word summary of this. Within 5 seconds, it will spit out a 200-word summary of the article. So that's on ChatGPT. If you want to make it even better, do the same on Gemini, do the same on on 5 different tools, all right? You will have 5 different summaries. Take all these 5 different summaries, put it into a document, then go to maybe again go back to ChatGPT, drag and drop these 5 into it and say, read all of this and give me another version of a 200-word summary, and it'll spit all that out to you just like that, all right? So answering your question, so I went back and thought, what is the point of doing an assignment like this? Because it makes no value. There's no learning for the students out there. So, and it's still happening this semester. I just closed this semester. Next semester, I'm taking that assignment away, all right? What is happening in terms of that replacement? I'm actually, and this is a long process, because it's entrepreneurship, I'm actually interviewing entrepreneurs from various parts of the world, and then I'm actually putting those videos, and the students read that, and based on a topic, for example, how important is education for entrepreneurship, right? So they will research that, apply it in a context to this particular entrepreneur, and then write a report, right? So that's how I think we really need to be clever in redesigning our assignments so that they are, you can't make it AI proof, but at least not as openly as something like my earlier assignment where you could use AI to just fool everybody, right? Another assignment I have is what is called a reflection. A reflection is the 12 weeks of the semester. Based on all the topics we teach you, can you please write a 3,000-word reflection on your takeaways? That again could be replicated. So yes, it is very difficult to avoid it, but what we are going to do now is we are going to make it a video. The student then creates his or her own video to say what their reflection was, and then also give like a 2-minute presentation on the like a pitch of their of the product or the service that they were planning. So that's one of the ways we are planning to re-engineer it. But at the end of the day, you really have to think very, very deep into changing the assignments. And when I talk to my colleagues, I think that is the biggest challenge they have, because they say no one's got the time to re-engineer this. All right, that's one of the issues too. I hope that's answered the question.
Having a time is a critical issue now. I like the last statement you made. Either we cherish AI or we perish. So if you don't invest time in the AI, you will perish, of course. Thank you so much. You can have a seat.
Thank you.
Then, having said so, we are not the sage on the stage. We are having even colleagues here who can contribute, including the previous presenter. So we are going to receive questions. I don't know how much time remaining for us. Timekeeper is going to signal us, but we can get some questions. Thank you. Okay, so I'm starting from VC, then to principal.
Thank you so much. I really thank very much the speakers. I think this morning, I don't want to say it has been a tough morning, but it's a very interesting morning, because it brings us to understanding deeper about AI and how we can benefit from it. And now with this presentation by the panelists now, we heard from the first panelist, and now to you, Prof. I want to know from both of you, if you can, how have you managed, and sharing your own experiences, to engage with your peers at your respective universities to get that fear out of them. I mean, the instructors, professors, if they have. Because I think what is mainly affecting us, we have heard about AI and we are more scared about it. And the more we get scared about it, instead of cherishing it, the more we distance ourselves from it, and the more students are encouraged to cheat with it and not even facilitated the way they could. Is it unique with you as individuals at your respective universities, or it is a general practice, and so your peers have as well gotten that fear out of them? Thank you.
All right, thanks, Professor Konya. And that's a great question, Professor Didas. The short answer is that it's me, because I am a bit of a technology guy, all right, with technology background and things like that. So I got interested in this, and I decided to use it in the classroom along with a few others. But within my discipline, what happens is that increasingly people are getting to know that we need to allow students to use AI, all right? So I actually run a set of sessions in my, within my discipline. I call it Sandwich with Sam. Sandwich as in sandwich. It's a lunchtime session. 1 hour I teach, just not AI alone, on how to use technology in teaching, all right? So that's me. So that covers my department. And we might do it for the whole school. But what is also happening is that we have very casual discussions, not the formal ones, across a drink or a cup of coffee to say that this is what I used in class and this is how it's happening, right? But having said that, a bit of a disappointment I have is the fact that there are a lot of senior academics, people who have won teaching awards, who are still saying there's no way I'm going to use AI and let my students teach. But cheat, sorry, and I'm telling them they are using, all right? So it is a little bit of a difficult thing to convert, the peers and friends or colleagues to actually adopt what we are doing. But once they see the results, then they start adopting. So that's how it goes. In fact, even not AI, the School of Management and Marketing is now currently having a big campaign to what we call the flipped classroom. All right? So 1 hour of online lectures and a 2-hour workshop. I flipped my classes years ago. People are still struggling with flipping their classes because they're not very happy with, they're just happy with PowerPoint rather than doing it. So it's a little bit of a cultural thingy too. I don't know if that's answered the question, yes. Sorry?
Question, I'm sorry, moderator.
Sorry, yep.
I'm sorry. As a follow-up question,
Yes.
would it be advisable
Yep.
that it be taken as a regulation or an instruction from the governance of the institutions to make it mandatory for every teaching faculty to adopt using AI in their day-to-day activities?
Yes, absolutely. Before we started the day-to-day, I think we were having coffee together, and I mentioned to you that to me, I want to make it mandatory with all the people I know, and I'm helping them to do it. But if the universities can make it mandatory, then they will, the academics will adopt. And mandatory means taking the fear of AI away from the academics, telling them that they need to be ahead of the curve when it comes to students so that they can answer queries and questions based on being proactive. Because if part of my lecture, I give them workshop questions and they come to class. If as a lecturer or if my tutors are proactive and they know what, they prepare themselves with the AI tools, they can be ahead of the students. But 9 out of 10 of them don't do it today because they themselves are scared, they're running away. So if you have a mandatory requirement that there is training, there's prompt engineering, there's the do's and don'ts of AI, how do you change your assignments, then I think it will fall into place. That's my feeling. I'm not very sure if others feel that way.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. I think I share the same sentiments with my colleague here. It's still an ongoing discussion from where I come from, and there's still some resistance. So the issue is whether the lecturers are adapting to the future that is here already with us. And in terms of establishing frameworks, it's not yet there. We are still working on to see whether we could have benchmarks that could regulate this. This is still new for Africa, and we don't have a universal benchmark that regulates this in our institution. So, but colleagues, we are talking about it. We are looking at different ways to embrace it, though we have some concerns about it. So it's something that is ongoing, that both the teacher and the student are learning at the same call. Thank you.
Thank you. To add on to what Vici said, I think if you don't embrace AI or our lecturers are not embracing AI, is like ostrich hiding its head in the in the legs. AI is there, students are using it, then you don't want to use it. So it's like ostrich, right? Principal Frodi, you can have the mic.
Okay, so good morning, and as the moderator said, I'm Florie Sanganwimana, the principal of the College of Education, University of Rwanda. Let me first appreciate the learning that I have gained since yesterday around AI, and like a Vice Chancellor of University of Rwanda, today for me it was amazing. And being a teacher and a principal of College of Education, I was expecting a lot from today's session, and I haven't been disappointed. My question, which maybe I need clarification for a confusion that I had, and I will build my question from the words that I picked from Professor Kanayo, saying that AI could be a catalyst or a divider, and later some said that some students do not use or may not use AI because they think that it is not suitable for their long-term development. And we are saying that we recommend it, and personally, I advocate for it. Everyone, teachers and students should use it because of its benefits as far as enhancing learning is concerned. Now my question is, to that kind of hesitation or reluctance to embrace it, and I'm thinking of those students who are in a class where their colleagues are using and benefiting because it enhances their learning. And some other students are still reluctant, maybe because of fear or because they didn't appreciate or understand its relevance. How can we ensure that all students are supported and using AI so that we apply and we uphold the principle of equality and equity in teaching through AI? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. But I think your question is for this forum, not for me particularly. Like I mentioned, I tried to raise some teasers for us. Is it a catalyst or a divider for Africa? And I gave key statistics that show that we are still at the bottom of the whole debate. So the question, like I couched it and I said, our debate should be about how we no longer be consumers of important technologies, but as co-creators of ethical, equitable, and empowering digital learning systems tailored to the continent's needs. If you look at the dynamics that I mentioned, the statistics show that Africa is still behind, very much behind, and will remain very much behind. That does not take away the benefits of AI. But my thinking and my teaser for the forum, how do we make sure, because we're talking about digitalization, and if you introduce inequality in digitalization, it could be terrible. We're already lagging behind. So the question is, how do we use this whole concept, which is here with us, to make sure it becomes a catalyst, not a divider? That's my question. That's my teaser for the forum. It should get us thinking as Africans, not just accepting every technology as it were, but how do we adapt it? How do we co-create this whole concept? How do we use it for the benefit of the continent, not just trailing along? So I think it's a question for all of us to be thinking about as we go along.
That's a great question you asked, and just adding on to what Professor Kanayo said was that I think he meant that from an African context, and I was totally talking from an Australian context where AI adoption is happening even in schools. All right, kids are being taught how to use AI tools for their assignments and things like that. Coming to your second part, I kind of reflect with, was it Professor Mariwati, was it? Sorry, I don't know if I got your name wrong. He brought a very good analogy. He said when electricity was invented, people thought, the world would change. Henry Ford had a problem trying to convince people to adopt the motor vehicle, right? So we are at that stage where AI is evolving and people don't know what to do. 30 years ago, when the search engines came, I was working in the IT industry at that time, people said, wow, with Google coming in, Google Books, Google Scholar, there's no need to go to school anymore and things like that. But has education changed? No. It's enhanced the way we teach ourselves and enhanced the way we learn. We've integrated technology into it to make sure that it gets better. I hope I'm in agreement with what you say, Professor Mariwati. I think you made a great point there. So I sincerely feel we are at that adoption stage. A year from now, next year when we meet, we probably will all be using AI in the class too. That's what I feel. I hope the question has been answered though.
Yes.
Yes, I saw a hand go up there. Over there, he put his hand up first. No, behind.
So thank you again for this session, which I find very interesting. I think my comment would be about how we teach and the need for integration of AI in our teaching. My concern is that the adoption of AI to promote teaching in Africa will not be possible if we are not deliberate about promoting active learning. AI usage is not compatible with passive learning. The traditional didactic way of teaching in Africa, because when you look at how we teach in most African universities, most of lecturers, or maybe let's say most of the universities, they still promote didactic teaching and the passive method of learning than active learning. And I don't see a relationship between the use of AI and passive teaching. So I think if in Africa we want AI to be used to promote teaching and learning activity, there is a need for the universities in Africa to make active learning the way of teaching. That way, it will be easy for the students to use AI, because you cannot use AI when the teaching is lecturer or teacher-centered. You can only use AI when the learning is student-centered. And that is how you can engage the student in learning, in assignment, and stuff like that. And we have to also think of the way we think about workload. For instance, if I am a teacher and I'm using active learning method to teach students, like flipped classroom and other forms of active learning, am I seen as someone who is teaching, or the workload hours that is allocated to my class? Must I be in class physically to deliver the hours? So the way we count workload, the way we think about workload, we have to reevaluate it so that we don't misjudge people who are using the current teaching trend to promote learning and assume that maybe they are not working rightly or they are not doing the right thing. So I think those are my comments about this subject matter. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we are still having more questions. Benjamin can put the QR code there. Then you can send your questions and the expert and someone else can answer, then we'll be sharing the answers. You can share the QR code. Thank you for our panelists. They have presented on a very important topic, and what we can pick up is now everyone needs to be able to ride the elephant. Yeah, we need to ride the elephant. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
It seems like just the other day we were preparing to attend the AAUN Africa Forum, and already we have reached the conclusion of the forum. May I kindly request my panel to come and take a seat on stage, please? So it's Christine Ingabire. We have a virtual panelist, Josh Matanzima, Dr. Renesani Kwabe, Prof. David Mikla, and Mrs. Kanyitare Tengera. May I, Prof. Barnabas, you are also on my panel, please. And then, and then Prof. Didas. Thank you. Colleagues, my name is Priscilla Mensah, and I am Director for Research Development at Nelson Mandela University. I think it's encouraging that AAUN has set up an Emerging Researchers Network, and we will hear from the network shortly. This forum has also started an important conversation on AI in higher education. And as Prof. Vati said earlier, an opportunity for us to define what Africa wants from the AI revolution. Now, we may not leave the forum as experts, but I'm sure you will agree that we've been inspired by the keynote addresses, by the discussions that have happened, and the collaborations. We've collaborated both in conversation and in dance. If you were not at the gala dinner last night, you really missed out. I would like to express appreciation. There will be formal appreciation given later. This is my first visit to Kigali, and the hospitality has really been amazing, and I'm already planning to return for other engagements next month. With that, may I please invite the speaker who is doing the summary. Christine, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. So I was going to give my presentation to those who are helping, but can I send? Thank you very much. My names are Christine Ingabire from the University of Rwanda, and I'm here to present the summary of the highlights that were shared throughout the sessions. Thank you. So AI is transforming higher education by enhancing teaching, learning, and administrative processes. However, it's crucial to address concerns about academic integrity and equitable access to AI-driven tools. It was said that in this forum, we focused on how AI can drive sustainable development, enhance educational systems, and address global regional challenges. So we had the VC welcoming the forum participants and the AAUN co-chairs. And then we had the guest of honor, who was the DG HEC, officially opening the forum. Then we had the sessions. One of the sessions talked about the role of AI in higher education at the national and university strategies. We had science of AI in Australia and Africa as a comparative outlook, sustainable food systems and AI, gendered research and AI, AI and sustainable health systems, AI as a geopolitical tool, national policies, security and ethical considerations, and lastly, revolutionizing the way of learning using AI. So I'm going to project the shared experiences and best practices in AI implementation from the universities and countries and even challenges. Yes, the best practices and achievements include that in our countries, we have many services that are going online. For example, in Rwanda, yesterday they mentioned that so many payments are being done online. So the implementation of AI status and projects. Here we have centers of excellence, drone knowledge hub, data-driven incubation hub, AI labs, sustainable African rivers initiative and dam projects. We have postgraduate programs, professional courses, trainings to different people. We also have this deep learning Indaba organization, AI tools, Turnitin, which can detect AI similarities. Yeah. So the challenges include financial means. We heard from different speakers yesterday that the cost of AI tools is a big challenge, especially to our students, and that can bring disparities. There is also lack of infrastructure and resources, including energy. There is also unequal access to tools and infrastructure, biased data and biased mindsets, lack of relevance of data people upload. This is social media. There is also lack of data as far as languages are concerned and indigenous knowledge. There is also the issue of security or privacy and copyright, and also ethical issues in the use of AI in an academic environment, especially data cheating. Yes, these are some recommendations and resolutions that were taken or given yesterday and today. It was recommended that we should adopt AI and use it in different contexts and domains of life. Governments, policymakers, and higher learning institutions should adopt AI use in their services and involve all people in the society. That is what we call inclusivity. Then AAUN should develop and put in place a policy on the use of AI. Teachers need to be aware of AI platforms to be able to supervise their students' use of AI. AI should be used in detection of diseases for sustainable systems, sustainable health systems and effective production. Put strategies for equitable licensing, protecting sources of data, our heritage, enabling an ecosystem. Enhance collaboration among institutions at all levels. Yes, so AI does not replace the ordinary teaching methods. This is another recommendation or resolution or ordinary human work, that is medicine or social interactions. And we need to remember that people are the beneficiaries. Yeah, the integration of AI will not be possible if we are not promoting active learning. That has been said some minutes ago. Then African universities are still promoting passive learning, and the teaching is African universities cannot promote active learning while we have we use teacher-centered methods. So we need to be to engage our students actively and have the way and reshape or evaluate the way we teach. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christine. We appreciated the recommendations and resolutions that you provided in that excellent summary. Thank you. The AAUN has also been intentional about inviting emerging researchers to network. The network was launched last year, and we're very pleased that both on the Australian continent and on the African continent, these young researchers have organized themselves, and we will now receive an update starting with, I don't know, Qinisani, would you like to go first, or should we invite Josh? Perhaps Qinisani, you can go first to give us an update on the work that is being done by the ECRs on the African continent. And while you're setting up, perhaps I can acknowledge some of the ECRs that participated in this forum. In the audience, we have Deirdre Rule from UCT. Deirdre, where are you? Okay, thank you. And then we have Dr. Gerby from Bahir Dar University, who participated in the program yesterday. So it's encouraging to see their participation. Qinisani, over to you.
Thank you very much. The slides are loading. Good afternoon, everyone. It's exactly 12 o'clock. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for us as ECRs to just give a bit of feedback on our progress over the past year. The network was started in April last year, 2024, at the University of Mpumalanga in Mbombela. And we are a bit older than our Australian partners. So I think my presentation is going to be a bit detailed than my colleagues who will be joining us online. So this was prepared by myself and my co-chair, Dr. Suzy Munyalo, who I think everybody has interacted with by now. And what we are going to be sharing is the work that we've done collectively with our members in the network, starting with the strategy document. We will be talking about, I'll be presenting, or rather updating about our membership as well, because for those of you that were fortunate enough to join us in Perth last year, you would remember that we had quite a few universities that had joined our ECR network. We've grown bigger now. I will be touching on a bit on the activities that we've had and activities that we are still going to have as the year continues, and the survey that our ECRs participated in. So the strategy document, which we worked on, I think, for about 8 months, if not more, was a collective effort between both the Africa AAUN ECRs and the Australian ECRs as well. There was a lot of back and forth, and I'm not going to touch on everything that is indicated there. However, I want to highlight some of the things that I think would sum up the entire strategy. And I think all in all, if you read the document, what you would see is that what matters for us and what we want to achieve needs to align with those 8 points that are indicated there on your, I think if you're this side, it would be your right, and your left if you're this side. So knowledge sharing and collaboration is enshrined in the document, support and peer mentoring, networking, advocacy, career development, professional visibility, funding opportunities, and community building. Some of these I am happy because as I present, you will see that there are elements of them that we've contributed towards. In terms of membership, we have a representation of 11 institutions across Africa, and I'm particularly going to mention Bahir Dar University. If I'm not pronouncing it well, please do forgive me. And also, I don't see them now. Walter Sisulu University is supposed to be there as well. They are our latest members. I think the ECRs just joined about 2 months ago, or less than 2 months ago. And I must say, all our ECRs are very, very active in all institutions, or most institutions at the very least. There are institutions that indicated that they don't have ECRs at the moment, the University of Mauritius being one of them. That was sometime last year, so what we're going to do is to follow up. Perhaps they might have this year. I must emphasize while I'm there though, while I'm still there, that we still make use of universities like Mauritius. We plan to have seasoned academics facilitating some of our sessions, just as we do with all the other institutions, because by virtue of them not having ECRs at the moment doesn't mean that you can't leverage on them. So we would very much appreciate to still have them participating in our engagements. What I'm showing here is actually something I captured when we were meeting with our ECRs earlier this year. And I want this to be evidence that whatever it is that we do is not something that the co-chair decides. All the decisions that are taken are decided by the network itself, the steering committee, before we document or finally say this is what we're going to be doing with Suzy. So engagements have taken place in a form of webinars mainly. We've had quite a few this year, and it's all those that you are seeing on screen. We had a series on grant writing. I think that was very, very timely, and ECRs did say that themselves. We had Professor Sean Patrick, who is based at the University of Pretoria, and we also had Professor Sijekula Mbanga, who is at the Nelson Mandela University. My apologies. Something particularly interesting about these two presentations was that when we conducted our survey, and you will see shortly, ECRs indicated that this was one of the most, I don't want to use the term impact, this was the most, for a lack of a better term, I will use that term because my English bundles are running very low. It was the most productive or fruitful session for them. So we plan to have more and more of these, especially as we see grants being advertised, including the one that's going to come up later in the year. And also, I think it it came in timely because the PRDF grant is out now, and we are hoping that our ECRs are going to be applying. I know Date Ray sitting there, who was interacting with me yesterday, was just expressing how much she is interested in applying for this funding. There's many others. Even this morning, one colleague from the Nelson Mandela University contacted me to ask more about the grant. We've been talking a lot about AI. Yeah, that's something. So I have this gentleman here. He's the only one. He's the only one with an image in black and white. Professor Andy Caroline. He actually wrote an article on Daily Maverick not so long ago, and it was on AI. He said AI is an existential threat in higher education. And I want to quote something. He said, we risk an ever-increasing number of students who hold certificates that fraudulently certify their mastery of skills and content knowledge that some of them may have only barely attempted. And we found this particularly interesting as we were preparing for this particular sitting, and we decided to bring him to have a chat with our early career researchers, to which he gracefully said, yes, I would be more than happy to interact with you guys. And what was interesting for me was, in as much as in his research and his daily work, I think his work is the same as yours, Sam, and in his AI focus, as it pertains to teaching and learning, he acknowledges that AI is important, but only if it is used in a rightful manner. But then the question on how we measure if AI is used in a just manner still remains unanswered. He posed that question to us at the end of the webinar, and I would say, even though it has been partly answered in this sitting, we haven't fully answered it yet. I'm a lecturer myself. My students use AI. I do allow them during discussions in the classroom, but one can never know really how far one can stretch when it comes to utilizing it as a learning resource. And I say this because at the end of the day, our students need to exercise their brain muscle. So the question is, how do we make sure that we allow them? And how do we use AI while we still exercise our brains? Prof. Gerrit, who also focused on AI, I think he is a liberal and very much promotes the use of AI. And I guess all in all what you are saying is that we just need to catch up as academics, because the entire world, all sectors of the economy are shifting or have shifted with AI, yet we are not preparing our students for the world of work as it relates to AI. And then the last one was with Fungwa Nyamukachi, who comes from Conversation Africa, and she's all about, or rather Conversation Africa is all about science communication, and we are very happy because there is something that came out of this. What they do is that they take your research, your published research, they tailor-make it for a layman out there, simplify the language, they mass populate it. And this right here on screen is one of an example of a publication that came through Conversation Africa. It's been all over the world actually. If we had to take a screenshot of each and every publishing house that shared this article, I think the screen wouldn't have been enough. And that speaks to the visibility that you saw in the first line that is actually enshrined in our strategy document. And it's such things that we hope to find, because at the end of the day, what would be more interesting for us is when we sit and report, we report on things that are impactful, or we see the impact of the engagements that we are having. So our ECRs have indicated that they are going to make use of each and every sitting fruitfully. So please do expect to see a lot of published work from our ECRs, even in non-academic platforms, which would be the likes of journals. So I'll stop there. And then in our sittings, I just wanted to demonstrate here the commitment that is shown by our early career researchers. Our sessions are very long sometimes. Deidre has complained, actually, jokingly. And they take about 1 hour, 30 minutes to 2 hours. There's different time zones, but people still show up. If you see there, we've got actually 46 members, 46 registered members, but sometimes we open up some sessions to the broader university communities of all our member institutions. So we had 52 here, and on average, I would say we spent about 1 hour, 45 minutes, and this is what happens in each and every sitting that we have. So this just demonstrates how committed and willing our early career researchers are in advancing their professional careers and academic careers and everything else, and the work that the AAUN presents to them. These are the activities that we've done and that we are still going to continue doing. I mentioned the grant writing series, which started in March, and the focus on AI that was presented by the two professors I mentioned. We are still going to continue. I think in May we've lagged a bit behind, but we will catch up. I think what is particularly important, and again mentioned in the strategy document, is the importance of mentorship. So what we are currently doing is to link ECRs with mentors. And the ones that have committed to applying for the PRTF grant have already made connections with colleagues in other African institutions and colleagues in other institutions in Australia. So we hope by the end of July at the very least, we would have a full database of Australian colleagues and African colleagues that would look like something like this, which would be shared to all the network members, just so it would be easy for one to identify that this is a potential collaborator I can work with or I can approach. I think without having to go through all these, we are going to have a 3-part writing retreat. I think that is one exciting thing, and I think by that time we would have expanded our collaborations as a network, even within Africa itself. But we hope, I hope Josh can hear me, we hope that our Australian colleagues are going to be a part of this writing retreat, and we encourage the practice or the culture of working as one. I've got 1 minute now. I talk a lot, I did say. So I'm going to jump straight to the findings from the survey. So we asked our ECRs how actively they've engaged in our AAUN activities. And could you kindly show the slides for me, please? Thank you. And many of them said occasionally, not the kind of response we're hoping for, but we will try and improve. But 45.5% of them indicated that they are very active. And in terms of the support on their professional development, again, about 63.6% of them said moderately. while 31.8 indicated that they see a significant, there's some significance in terms of support. And in terms of the sessions they found most beneficial, I think the grant writing one stood out, but I think we were not fair in the manner in which you asked this question, hence our graph looks like this. But this also shows that every sitting is just as fruitful for us in the network. And in terms of establishment of collaborations within the broader AAUN network, the majority hasn't made any collaborations, unfortunately. 18.2% have collaborated with other African partners, and 13.6% have partnered with both African and Australian partners, while just about 4.5% have made collaborations in Australia. And the most valuable aspect of AUN in one's career, I think what stood out was networking with peers, because we do this quite frequently, and also research collaboration opportunities. Training and capacity building was also highly recorded, and that was then followed by access to funding of grants. So I'm gonna skip this one and go to this one. What our ECRs would like to see more on our network is more funding and grant opportunities. I think we will sit and we're going to discuss that post this sitting and see what that could mean for us and how we can respond to it. We are going to respond to these stats, by the way. And as a last slide, I think what was more interesting for me was the question that came last. Would you recommend the AAUN network to other early career researchers? And 100% of the guys that participated indicated that yes, they would, which means there is value in what we are doing, and we are excited about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nisani. In the interest of time, may we please ask that Josh be spotlighted for the Australian ECI report. And while we wait for Josh to be spotlighted, research has shown that getting an emerging researcher to becoming an internationally leading academic requires sustained access to opportunities. And I think this is something that the network aims to do. So it is good to see the funding opportunities that will be provided through the PRDF, the capacity development interventions, the webinars, etc., and the intention to have mentorship. So that's good. I would like to advocate for a more inclusive form of the ECRs and profiling of the ECRs when the forum meets in Africa and Australia, so that there's a dedicated program and they can network, but also use that as opportunities to present their work. That might explain why most of the ECRs have not yet been able to form collaborations within the network. Do we have Josh online?
Yes. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you. A warm welcome to you, Josh, and over to you.
Okay. Thanks very much, Dr. Priscilla Menza. I'm Josh Matanzima, and I would also want to acknowledge the online presence and support of my co-chair, Ruvimbo Goredema. So I'm going to share a few slides.
Okay, Josh, if you can keep your report to 10 minutes, we will appreciate it.
All right, that's okay. I'm not sure if you can see my slides.
Not yet, but I think in the interest of time, you should start.
All right, that's okay. All right, that's fine. Unfortunately, I can't get my slides up, but thank you so much. Rui and I would like to express our sincere gratitude to the AAUN Africa co-chairs and the Secretariat for the opportunity to give a report on our early career research activities in Australia. And additionally, we extend our appreciation to Dr. Kwinisani Tuabe and Dr. Susi Munialo for their invaluable support, as well as to the AAUN Australia co-chairs, associate professors David Mikla and Janet Zato, and the Secretariat, Dr. Grace Lill, for their ongoing assistance and support. And thanks also goes to the University of Rwanda for hosting the gathering this time and all organizers involved. So I'm just gonna talk a little bit about what we have been doing since we assumed our roles as co-chairs in September 2024 at the AAU event in Perth. So Rui and I have collaborated closely with the Australian co-chairs of the AAUN, that is David and Janet, as well as our fellow ECR co-chairs, Sani and Susi. So together we've developed foundational documents essential for the effective management of our early career researcher initiative. Some of these documents are the ones that Sani showed in one of his slides. So these include the establishment of a comprehensive terms of reference, a strategic plan to guide our activities, as well as recruitment materials for the steering committee, which encompassed nomination forms and selection criteria that were disseminated to university representatives as part of the recruitment process. So we have also been actively engaged to improve the documentation pertaining to the ECR price, specifically focusing on refining the aims, objectives, and the selection criteria. These documents were approved by the board during its previous meeting in early March this year. We've also been engaging in a series of collaborative meetings with the ECR co-chairs from Africa to refine these documents. And these discussions have also addressed other critical issues that are relevant to the needs of early care researchers. This collaborative effort has been particularly important as the African co-chairs have previously established foundational documents before our appointment. So our focus has been on adapting and contextualizing these documents to align with the specific circumstances and objectives of the Australian ECR community. We've also actively participated in webinars organized by our early career researcher counterparts in Africa. We would like to extend our gratitude to Susi and Kwinisani for their invitations and for including us in their the mailing list. The webinars have addressed pertinent and critical topics relevant to both Africa and Australia. As Kwinisani showed in one of his slides, they included wide-ranging of topics such as artificial intelligence, self-branding, research communication, and grant writing. So these webinars offered a great opportunity for ECRs to learn, and we hope to cover similar topics on the Australian side. The one on AI was particularly important because the presenter highlighted some of the issues that have been a focus of the presentations at this conference. And we are also planning to run a webinar on AI from the Australian, for the Australian ECRs. We hope to invite Professor Nigel Gibson from Rhodes University in South Africa, who is the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Asian and African Studies, and he's doing research on AI and publishing. And we also he will also share his experiences with AI and his handling of academic papers, particularly from Africa. So in March of this year, following the board's approval of our early career researcher documents, we initiated the recruitment process for the steering committee members. And the initial communication was disseminated by the Secretariat, Dr. Grace Lill, and we've since conducted follow-up correspondence. So the 10 universities contacted, 5 have submitted their selected candidates, and we are currently in communication with these candidates and anticipate convening our inaugural meeting next month on the 17th of June. Currently, we are undertaking a series of outreach activities, and these activities encompass the promotion of our forthcoming webinar on the importance of ECR communities that is scheduled for May 29, which will be presented by Professor Julia Richardson, as well as the Professional Development and Research Fund. We are disseminating information through various platforms, including LinkedIn. We are also establishing a mailing list. And additionally, we intend to leverage these same channels for the promotion of Early Career Researcher Prize that's going to be launched in a couple of weeks, I believe. So moving forward, we aspire to conclude the recruitment process for our steering committee by June the 12th of 2025. And we also anticipate to convene our inaugural steering committee meeting on the 17th of June, as I mentioned. And then at the forthcoming Australia board meeting scheduled for the 19th of June, one early career researcher representative will be extended an invitation to participate. That is either me or Rui. And we also aim to implement additional outreach programs within member institutions and on a national scale, collaborating with the Africa Wing. So this collaboration will involve identifying suitable timeframes that accommodate both continents. So that's all I had. Thanks very much, Dr. Priscilla Mensah, for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much, Josh. We are very grateful and happy to see the work that you are doing collaboratively with Ravi, Susie, and Klinisani. We note the adoption of your foundational documents and that your recruitment process is ongoing. That's excellent. Colleagues, we will now move in our program to AAUN Business. And so we invite Prof. David Mickler, the AAUN Chair, as well as Prof. Barnabas Nawangwe, the AAUN Africa Deputy Co-Chair, for this update.
Could we have the slides, please? Thank you very much, Priscilla. And just like to say on behalf of the AAUN Australia Board, this has been a really wonderful gathering. We seem to have a habit of saying that each AAUN forum is better than the last one. Not just as a saying, but because it's really true. So congratulations to the team at University of Rwanda for putting on this really fascinating and really warm networking event that we've had over the last couple of days. My colleague, Professor Barnabas, will make some remarks afterwards, but I just wanted to use this opportunity to tell you a little bit about what else is going on in the AAUN system. Of course, the two forums that we have every year are real highlights of the work that we're doing as a network. We're really delighted to have the ECR group now established over the last 12 months as a core pillar of what our network can do. But we have a number of other initiatives that we also have instituted over the recent times or are about to institute over the coming months that demonstrate the growing impact that the network is having and the growing opportunities that we can deliver to our members as an international university network now of 25 members. So let me just say a few words about some of the various initiatives that we are working on. If we go to the next slide, please. I can do it? Okay. As I mentioned last night, in tribute to our founding co-chairs, Professor John Hearn and Professor Cheryl Delaray, we have been initiating an annual prize in their name that will be awarded to two of our ECR colleagues. We've been developing the guidelines around this in partnership with the two boards and the ECR groups. We've decided that we will open the nominations process at the Perth Forum coming up in September. The award will be for one ECR from the African membership and one ECR from the Australian membership with a prize of 2,000 Australian dollars to each. As I said, we're finalising the guidelines around this, but we would encourage you to start identifying promising researchers in your universities that meet the ECR criteria. This award will be for research excellence and achievement. Once we've completed the nomination and selection process, we then aim to have the awarding ceremony at next year's AAUN Africa Forum. So that'll be a real highlight to look forward to next year. The other core activity that we do through the network is promoting collaborative research. Last year we brought our flagship PRDF grants back online after the challenges of COVID meant we couldn't offer those. Last year we awarded 8 projects across the network, and we opened the 2025 round earlier this month on the 1st of May. And that round will close on the 15th of June, so there's still time, and it's a great opportunity given that this forum sits right in the middle of that period for people to be using this chance to build applications collaboratively. I won't go into all of the details because they're on the AAUN website. There's a full guidelines document, the application forms. We did a webinar briefing in late April, which you can watch online. So all of the details are there, but just briefly, we also expect to fund another 8 projects this year. The way that it works is it's a matching fund. So if you can build a team that can raise up to $10,000, then we will match that up to $10,000. So it doubles your money effectively. Now, 4 of the awards will go to African-led applications and 4 will go to Australian-led applications, given that we're an equal partnership network. And we've also committed, as we did last year, to at least 2 of those 8 projects being led by ECRs. As I said, a minimum of 2, it could be more, and we've been really encouraging the ECR groups, as Ginesani has said, to build capacity around grant writing through their webinars and so on, so that we can see really high quality applications again this year from ECRs. Each project must have at least 2 Australian AAUN member universities and at least 2 African AAUN member universities, so that it's a core of AAUN university partners, but it doesn't mean you can't bring in other external partners as well. even industry partners, other universities outside of AAUN and so on. But at its heart, it's an opportunity to build partnerships and build research collaborations. It's a relatively small grant, but the idea is that it's a catalyst for building teams that are then in a position after 12 months to co-apply for a much larger external grant that might be available. For 2025, our research priority themes are 5: environment, climate and the energy transition, equality, security and social cohesion, public health and human well-being, sustainable food and water systems, and of particular relevance for this forum, AI and the digital revolution. So a great chance again to be talking to colleagues in the room and putting together an application. As I said, we did award 8 grants last year, and I'll just quickly highlight those. They're in progress now, and we'll be hoping to have an update from the research teams at the September forum in Perth. So one of those was titled Inclusivity in Virtual Study Tours, Using Technology to Foster Transformational Learning, led by Curtin University, but you can see the collaborating partners there as well. Another one was by Dr. Dorvlo. Is he still in the house? He's got, okay. Enhancing the use of pigeon pea and other indigenous and underutilised crops in African food systems through technological and agronomic advancements. Again, led by the University of Ghana with a team from across the AAUN network. Enhancing wellbeing in rural destinations through sustainable luxury ecotourism development, delineating structural product, host community and tourist factors, led by Dr. Ndoro from University of Pretoria, again with a cross-AAUN team. Building innovative capability and climate change resilience in higher education sectors in Australia and Africa, led by Dr. Diraksani from Murdoch University with collaborators again across the network. Empowering cattle farmers, harnessing biogas for sustainable milk preservation in off-grid areas of Uganda, led by Dennis. Is Dennis still here? Well done, Dennis. Hope the project is going well. Cardiovascular disease, perceptions and knowledge among adolescents across 2 continents, Africa and Australia, led by Dr. Akombi Inyang from University of New South Wales. And civil society participation in energy transition minerals governance, comparative case studies of lithium development in Africa and Australia, led by Dr. Josh Matanzima, who you just heard from in the ECR group. And finally, gender dynamics in energy transitions in African countries and Australia by Professor Inglisi Lotz from University of Pretoria. So you can see that there's a wide range of projects that were successful across those priority themes, and the key here is that they're teams that are built on partnerships across the network. So please check out the further details and make sure you get your applications in by the 15th of June. Another initiative that we pioneered through the network a couple of years ago was the Emerging Leaders in Australia-Africa Diplomacy Program. And this was an online program that we convened through AAUN, which was designed to bring together master's level students as well as junior diplomats from both Australia and Africa to create a network of emerging leaders that would have some knowledge of each other across the Indian Ocean, but also have some professional connections that we hope would endure into the future. We selected 36 fellows from across Australia and 13 African countries. You can see the list there. And then we gave them a series of online panel discussions, interactive panel discussions with high-level speakers from the diplomatic corps, from our university members and from other organisations. They covered the building of knowledge, understanding each other as Australia and Africa, the building of skills, particularly diplomatic skills as aspiring diplomats. And then we discussed how Australia and African countries can tackle shared global challenges across geopolitics, climate, the economy, human development, human security, and so on. So we're pleased to announce that we are going to now run a second iteration of this program. It was a very successful pilot that we ran a couple of years ago, and there's appetite to do this again. It will commence later this year, and we'll provide further details on that. It will be co-convened by 4 AAUN members: Curtin University, Australian National University, University of Pretoria, and University of Nairobi. We will run it as an online program, but what we're hoping is to attract enough funding to be able to bring all of the successful fellows in the program face-to-face at the next AAUN Africa Forum in 2026. So we'll be reaching out to all of the AAUN members to nominate master's students for this program. And again, more details will be provided next month. We're also developing our new strategic plan for 2026 to 2030. As part of that, we've been doing a review of the activities of the network over the last 5 years, including, of course, the challenging time during COVID. We've also been polling our member universities to see what their research priorities will be for the next 5 years, and using that to put together our strategic plan, which will guide us for the period up to 2030. So that's in development right now, and we will be finalising that and then presenting that at the AGM in Perth in September. We also have a new book project that a number of people in AAUN, including in this room, are involved in. It's focusing on the concept of science diplomacy and looking at science diplomacy in the context of Australia-Africa cooperation. It's edited by myself, Professor Chris Ezike from University of Pretoria, as well as Professor Frans Swanepoel from University of Pretoria. It's a partnership between several organisations, including the AAUN Centre for Australia-Africa Relations at Curtin University, Future Africa at University of Pretoria, and the South African National Research Foundation. We're bringing together a collection of scholars through a co-authored model. So each chapter has 3 co-authors from Australia and Africa, from natural and social sciences, including some people, practitioners from government, as well as academics and early career researchers. We're examining the idea of Australia-Africa science diplomacy through the lenses of research collaboration, policy impact and international cooperation. And we're looking at a range of different science diplomacy frameworks, case studies in practice, as well as future directions for how we can use this idea to promote greater collaboration between our continents. We're aiming to have a hybrid book workshop at the Perth AAUN Forum. So the next Australia Forum will again be in Perth. It makes a lot of sense for us to do this on the Australian side because every September in Perth we have what's called National Africa-Australia Week, where we have a lot of attention on Africa. We have all of our high-level diplomats and various companies involved in Australia-Africa relations in Perth. So for the last several years we've been hosting the AAUN Forum as part of that Africa Week. We haven't yet discussed the details of, or the theme for that forum. I think the use of the thematic focus for each forum is actually very successful. So we'll get together as the 2 boards and come up with an appropriate theme for the Perth Forum. But of course you're all welcome, and we hope to be able to say that the Perth Forum was also the best forum we've ever had going forward. So I'll hand over now to Prof. Barnabas. Thanks.
Thank you, our chair, Priscilla, and thank you, our host, Professor Didas, and the Australia co-chair, David Mikla, and the vice chair, Professor Janet. I will just make a few remarks. I think the organizers, in a way, apologized for me for coming late, but they explained why I came late. I want to just make a few remarks about the importance of what we are doing between Africa and Australia. And I will address the changing role of universities, and particularly the African university. I just returned from the conference of the Worldwide Universities Network in Hong Kong. And I must say that the opening of the conference really surprised those of us who come from low-resourced countries, because the main topic of discussion was student accommodation. And we asked, really, we come all the way, these thousands of kilometers, and the most important thing we are discussing is student accommodation. That is not the priority for Africa. We want all African children to come and have a higher education, but the accommodation for university cannot be the priority. And that talks to the issues that Professor Vukose said. Can we determine what our priorities are? What are the challenges we face? And how do we then use artificial intelligence to address those challenges? So, in my opinion, the real challenges that face African universities is the low level of higher education enrollment. That is one. Up to now, we are still having 6% enrollment in higher education in Africa. It is the lowest in the world, and it is much far lower than the world average of 32%. So the next low region is 18%. So you can see how big a problem that is. And all studies show that if we do not have a critical mass of people with higher education, it is very difficult to move people out of poverty. The other one is what I would call the global threats. So again, in Hong Kong, we're discussing some issue, and the issue was how are we perceived by the public or by our governments as the role of the universities. And of course, our colleagues from the richer north were saying they are struggling with governments appreciating what they are doing. And I said, no, it is the reverse, at least in Africa, because in Africa, governments are actually still establishing national universities, because governments believe that universities have a very big role to play in the emancipation of people from poverty. And I just gave the example as far as global threats are concerned. Again, Professor Vukose, you talked of the money that is being taken away by the richer north, and especially what is happening in the United States. So I said, while Harvard can even sue Trump for barring them from admitting foreign students, and also saying they will not be funded if they don't do such things, and the president of Harvard can write and say, you have no right and you can go to hell, you can keep your money. Harvard has an endowment that is bigger than Uganda's GDP. So Harvard can afford to do such things. I cannot afford to do it, because we depend entirely on government funding. We have the local threats we have to address as universities in Africa, and one of them is the issue that, again, Professor Vukose raised. As far as the artificial intelligence is concerned, that is the local content. Yes, I was actually launching Makerere's, we call it Artificial and Data Lab, last month. And I could see that there were efforts by some of our researchers to work in the local languages, but so far it is only one language. Uganda has more than 50 languages, but they are working just in one language, which is probably the most widely spoken. But I don't see how we are going to bring all these languages into the AI when you don't even have specialists in those languages. So how do we do it? The other challenge is the cost of data centers, the infrastructure. At Makerere, we are trying to establish a data center, and the government we wanted the government to borrow the money because we don't have the money. And when we go to the consultants, for us, we assumed that if we got $10 million, we should have a serious data center. They told us that, you know, the cheapest data center you can get is $50 million. So we basically gave up. So how do we address that issue? And then we have this very fast population growth. While we are saying access to education is only 6%, higher education, that figure is likely to drop as the population grows, because the establishment of universities, tertiary institutions is not growing at the same rate as the population. How do we address that? Maybe by using artificial intelligence. And I can see that there are quite a number of African researchers doing research in using AI in areas of health, food security, and languages. But also there is also the problem, I don't know, they say it is a word problem, but there's what we call fake news. How do you deal with fake news, which sometimes actually disrupts a lot of things and even retards progress. So if we use the words of Mwalimu Nyerere, one of his most memorable quotes was, "While other nations may walk, Africa must run." And hence that question which we were given in Beijing gaining importance, will Africa be left behind? Again, but you know, Professor, of course, you tactfully said we don't have to compete with the others. Let us concentrate on what we need. And maybe that is the way to go. So we need to, as universities, play the central role in the use of AI, in the promotion of development and the emancipation of our people from poverty. Because if we don't do that, nobody is going to do it. So that then brings me to the importance of this network, the AAUN. I have already highlighted what is happening in the world, especially with the United States, which I'm told stopped overnight funding to health programs where some countries in Africa were depending 50% or even more on the funds from the USAID for their health as a country. And that was stopped overnight. Other things, of course, are affected. In our university, research is affected. So when we have networks like the AAUN, we need to value their role. Through the AAUN, we have been doing quite a number of research between the African universities and the universities in Australia, and there are many examples that we can quote. By the way, David, I'll be making my contribution to that book soon, you know, and giving you these very many examples. Through these networks, we can have mutual learning, and it should be of mutual benefit. In Africa, we are faced with the problem, what the World Bank has told us, that if we want to move Africa out of poverty, we must train 1 million PhDs in the next 10 years, which means that 100,000 PhDs every year. At the moment, we don't produce even a half of that. Now, we have to find ways of trying to address that problem. And one of the ways, of course, I mentioned this in Perth last year, is by leveraging the expertise at universities in Australia, because one of the biggest problems is finding supervisors for the PhDs, even if you want to increase that by a certain percentage. The supervision capacity is not enough. And through the AAUN, we can try to address part of that. Even within the African universities, the issue of resource sharing is pertinent. We do not, as individual universities, have all the resources, but among ourselves and also leveraging the AAUN with the Australian universities, we can make take advantage of the resources that exist at the other universities. So with all those words, it is now my honor and pleasure to announce that Mekelle University has been fully admitted as a member of the AAUN, becoming the newest member of AAUN. And so we want to congratulate Mekelle. I hope they are in the room. Mekelle University. Okay, it sounds like a Makerere, but it's Mekelle from Ethiopia. Okay, and we do congratulate them. The application was unanimously endorsed during the Africa Steering Committee meeting, which took place 2 days ago. And they become the 15th African institution and the 25th overall member of the AAU network. And on behalf of the entire AAU community, we extend our heartfelt congratulations and look forward to working with you to fruitful collaboration. Let me also join my colleague, David, in appreciating the Rwanda team for the organization, for the wonderful organization of this conference. I always look forward to coming back to Kigali because Kigali is the cleanest city in Africa. That's a very good reason to be here anyway, okay? But also the hospitality of the Rwandan people. So a special thanks to Dr. Raymond and Dr. Jamali for their outstanding leadership in organizing and coordinating the AAUN Africa Forum, hosted by the University of Rwanda, and the entire Rwanda team. But special thanks to the Vice Chancellor, Professor Didas Kaihura. I think, Professor, when you attended the AAUN conference, where you were admitted as a member for the first time, you also managed to convince AAUN to bring the next conference here. You know? So you have very good skills of convincing people to do things. And we, of course, recognize your efforts in promoting the University of Rwanda within the African consortiums. When you came, you immediately made sure UR joins the ARUA, okay, and they became an active member of ARUA and other associations. So we want to thank you very much for the invitation to come to Kigali. The forum has successfully sparked thought-provoking discussions on artificial intelligence, touching on key themes such as higher education, health, food systems, gender, and geopolitics, providing a strong foundation for future engagement and innovation. And even if I did not participate in the proceedings yesterday, the little I have seen today was worth for me to be here because this is an issue in which I have very much personal interest. We are currently working on a policy on artificial intelligence for Makerere University. I didn't know some of the terminologies today. Whenever my colleagues have been talking of machine learning, I thought it was people learning about machines. I didn't know that it is a machines learning, okay? So this has been very useful for me. And I wish to sincerely thank all the speakers, discussants, session chairs, panelists, and participants for your time and availability and enriching the forum. I want to particularly thank our colleagues from down under because coming from Australia is always, or going there, is always not an easy thing. But thank you very much for coming to join us here. And we look forward, of course, to joining the forum in Perth in September. And for us in Africa, we look forward to welcoming you at the next forum that will be in Africa. Thank you very much, and all the best.
Colleagues, before I invite Prof. Didas to do the closing remarks, can I invite you to please thank Prof. Didas and the team from University of Rwanda. Prof. Didas, over to you, please, for the closing remarks.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Priscilla, for the floor. Yes, my closing remarks will be dominated by the word thank you. But before I get to that, I just wanted to re-emphasize what Prof. Barnabas just said about thinking now that we are in Africa, discussing about artificial intelligence in higher education, but more specifically, we want to look at where we are, and we have looked at where we are, and comparatively learn from our colleagues from Australia, but we also want to learn from the rest of the world. But always, as he rightly said, we always need to think about what our priorities are. Indeed, like you discussed in Hong Kong, students' accommodation is a major issue. It is our issue, particularly at the University of Rwanda, where we have even committed for the next 5 years to be having almost 60% of our students accommodated on campus. But then we need to ask ourselves, is that the highest priority for us as a university? When we still have crowdings in our lecture rooms, wouldn't we wish to have more space for our learners, for the learning purposes, much more than the hostels? But some have gone even further to say that even those hostels are learning spaces. So again, we need to think about how we are talking about AI. Shall we continue to still have the learning spaces as the walls? Or we can even find a way and enhance our understanding and our safeguards with AI and other virtual learning and e-learning spaces, to even reach an extent where we do not have even to think about hostels or lecture halls, but have our laptops, our free spaces where we can even be enhancing, especially, as he rightly said, that in Africa, our penetration for enrollment, let me say it so, is still very low. When they averagely in Africa, we are at 6%. You will be surprised to learn that in Rwanda, access to higher learning institutions is just below that. We are at 3%. Few as we are, I don't know whether we are few comparatively to the population or and the size of the country, but we are there at 4%, those who have access to higher education. So that low level penetration of higher learning educational levels is a critical issue. And so probably one other solution to that would be going e-learning so that you may even enroll. I've seen some big universities in Africa that have higher rates of enrollments. They have also embraced e-learning, but are we prepared for that? Are we able to control and supervise how that is being conducted to the satisfaction of those learners, but also the employers, that those who studied virtually did actually get what was expected of them? Again, Prof, you talked about poverty and poverty reduction, and reminded me that last evening I had to leave the session here a bit earlier to go and meet with the UN rapporteur, who is a rapporteur on poverty. And I think, I don't know, I've never participated in those discussions at the UN, but I think it is more on Africa than elsewhere when they are discussing about poverty. And his question was to know how we at the University of Rwanda, the only public university in Rwanda, deal with poverty. How do we tackle the issue of poverty? And I said, I was with a few of my colleagues, but I told the rapporteur that I'm sorry to tell him that all our interventions are actually targeting fighting against poverty. All our programs, think of any one of them, is all about tackling poverty and poverty-related issues. I do not have any specific answer, but I will tell you in general that all our programs, all our interventions in our three principal mandates, the teaching, research, and community engagement, are all targeting and fighting against poverty. I can even say, like you've also mentioned about this electricity, whereas it is not a specific mandate for the University of Rwanda to enhance the electricity access or penetration to all Rwandans, but we run programs like on energy, engineering, economics, and so forth, which are all going to be contributing to that penetration. And I must say that the Rwanda, of course, has made a very great progress when it comes to energy penetration, where, like, for the last 15 years, it went from 6% penetration to now close to 80% penetration, electricity penetration, or electricity access, people accessing electricity, whether from the grid or from other sources, but at least we are that above. But if you look at that, shall we say that it is only one utility company, or a department of the government that contributed to that? My answer is no. Every one of us, especially the university, has contributed to that because we are producing engineers, we are producing economists who will be doing that, we are producing a number of those people that intervene on all that. So even though our position as universities, we are not yet, because of that low enrollment rate, but we need really to find ways how to reposition ourselves and be seen as I said during the opening, it is a world concern now to appreciate the trust in higher learning. And we will be having a conference, a global conference here in October, and just discussing about that, assessing the trust that we hold now as higher learning institutions. So we need, besides the numbers, we also need to look at the quality of what we produce and how acceptable or appreciable they are to our consumers. Ending that there, then we come back to our conference. And I said, I want to say thank you so many times. Thank you to all of you, especially our wonderful speakers, as was summarized in the report, but also ably summarized by our chair, co-chair from Africa, Prof. Barnabas Nawangwe. You all made us appreciate or understand that we are still learners. We have learned a lot from you. Thank you for accepting to share with us your knowledge and your experiences. We learned a lot. I think my fears are reducing thanks to your contributions during this conference. My fears to AI and its application. I have also learned that I have to teach the machines. I have to make them learn what I want and give back the solutions. And so machine learning has been demystified during the presentations here. And I don't believe I'm the only one who benefited a lot from this. To our institutional heads, those VCs, presidents, rectors, those who participated, and special thanks, by the way, to Curtin University. Not because they are the ones, through David, who extended their invitation to us at the University of Rwanda when David first came to us. But also you noticed that during this conference, we had the presence of the Vice Chancellor from Curtin University and the Deputy Vice Chancellor. And I will not count David as part of Curtin University delegation, but we also have several other professors in the room, some of whom contributed, whether physically and others virtually. And so when I say special thanks to university, that's where my emotions are founded. To our leadership at AAUN, whether on the African side, Prof. Barnabas, Prof. Aldo was here since the day before yesterday, and the whole of yesterday, even we were together at the gala dinner, where we enjoyed together, but unfortunately had trouble because there are several other engagements he wanted to be part of, and part of which is supposed to be running through this weekend. Although he left, but you've been gracious to being with us today, even though, as was introduced earlier, you've been on various other commitments, from Hong Kong back to your country, chairing the graduation ceremony, but you nevertheless thought you needed to be with us, and that is a commitment worthy. I think if I may invite colleagues in the room to put your hands together for Prof. Barnabas for his contributions to the running of our network, but also to Australian side. The chair, Prof. David and Prof. Janet, you've been ably supporting not only on your side, Australia, but also on African side. And that takes me to even the organizers, or the organizers, as we are organizing for this conference and all the events involved. I know the credit now goes to Rwanda, but I think you also, our chairs, deserve to take a very significant portion of that credit, and your secretariats, your respective secretariats, because you almost made it all for us. Colleagues in Rwanda, they very well know, yes, of course, there were those logistics that we had to put together, but your brains were instrumental in having all this put together. And so thank you so much for your support, for your guidance, and of course, as new members, we didn't know much to do, but we are having wonderful guidance and directions from our co-chairs from both ends. And of course, we came up to what we organized for you. From the beginning, I want to thank, I don't know whether Prof. Damier and Prof. Richard are in the room, when they let us know that we are the ones to think of the topic, the theme of the conference, and I put forward the proposal. They said, all right, yes, it is our tradition at the network that you take the lead in choosing the theme, but it's not just choosing the theme. You also have to go ahead and organize your team members to come up with a good concept that will guide the preparations and so forth. And so Prof. Damier and the director of the Center for IoT and AI and the Dean of School of ICT, Prof. Richard, I believe they also engaged other colleagues. They sat down and prepared the concept note, which was later to be discussed at the steering committees and was approved. And I thank you very much for what you came up with, for it to have gotten appreciated by the secretariats. ECR, the early career researchers and this leadership, you've also been instrumental in the organization of this, and your contributions in taking us through what you are doing. And of course, I believe my colleagues from the University of Rwanda who are here have learned a lot of what is being done by the ECR. early career researchers. A few days ago, I was sharing with my colleagues in this very hall that a few days ago when I was presiding over a research conference by students, organized by students, they let us know, they informed us that when we are thinking about early career researchers, we shouldn't start with early PhD graduates or the newly PhD graduates. We can let it go even lower. My worry was whether we can call them career researchers, but anyway, they said they are also part of that group, even though they are not with PhDs. But we appreciate the contributions you are giving, and of course, when you become strong, we are stronger because you are the ones who are going to be sustaining our efforts going forward. Especially now, my thanks goes to the organizers. Of course, I mentioned about the co-chairs and the secretariats, but I want to be specific now. Yes, the secretariats, both from Africa and Australia, but for this particular conference, I want to say thank you very much to Dr. Susie. You are there? Yes, Dr. Susie is one manning our secretariat in Africa, on the African side. But of course, she guided a lot. She was informing us. I don't know, she's part of the young career researchers, but the experience she has in regards to all this, organization of all this, is outstanding. So thank you very much for your contributions. Jamari, are you in the room? Jamari, you've been exceptional. You've been supportive in all this. I don't know how many times you've been communicating with Susie, but also with our co-chairs in all this, hearing from us, taking it back, and being there for us and discussing all the details. You've done so much with your team, of course. DVC, Dr. Raymond, you also supported enormously in coordinating. I know Jamar is one of your team members, and you were trusting a lot, but I know how much you were always editing and supporting, even though you were not at the forefront being seen, but a lot was being done by yourself and pushing it and trusting Jamari to be able to present whatever you were doing. Of course, that is from our side again. We have, I don't know whether Ange is in the room. Ange is not here maybe, but Ange is the one, the lady, the manager of these facilities. And we intentionally made her part of the organizing team, working with Jamal and other colleagues to make sure that it is all organized the way you saw it. And of course, the ICT team, Christian, and your colleagues, thank you so much for your support, for having everything put in order. And of our co-chairs, Prof. Aldo and Prof. David, and another colleague from Uganda, Prof. Wamala, I reached a time when I was like a bystander, and they were doing it. They were, especially in the content and how it is organized, inviting, suggesting who to invite as speakers. You really supported so much, and maybe Dr. Susie, when you get back, reach our gratefulness to Prof. Aldo for the support. Those who are here, we really appreciate what you did. I know there are so many others that we could mention here, but just know that all of you who are here, whether those of you who traveled from Australia or those who traveled from other parts of Africa, I think we are grateful for your being here. You made us advance in our role as hosts. I'm sure we've learned a lot when you came, and we were with you for all this time. You've made us better hosts. I don't know to what percentage, but you have contributed to that. And so, I wanted to end here, but because you are all so good to us, and we cannot afford to gift you all, a few of you are going to be gifted, and those of you who will be gifted, you will be receiving that gift on behalf of the many. A few of you, I don't know, DVC, you want to lead us in that? Thank you so much. Thank you for your kind attention, and we declare this conference officially closed as we give the gifts to the few that have been selected. Thank you.
Thank you very much, VC. It's just a token of appreciation on behalf of the University of Rwanda. And of course, we start with our co-chair. So, gift to David. And Janet. Our Australian co-chairs. So that's a gift for the University of Rwanda. So if you could bring those gifts, please. Just give it to VC. So gift to David and gift to Janet. Their names there. So thank you very much for traveling all the way, and to all friends from Australia to come here to Kigali. We hope to see you again. So then gift to the African co-chairs. So that's Professor Barnabas and Professor Aldo. Susie, you can keep one for, because, no, wait. You can have one for Prof. Aldo. For trusting us, and we look forward for any other event. Susie, while we are still there for Aldo, I think we have early career researcher and Dr. Sen. This is an appreciation. When we started, I explained we are doing this for the younger generation. So it could be younger student or early career researcher. So this is to show our appreciation. Yesterday, we also recognized a wonderful researcher, Prof. Siddiqui. I know he's not here, but the student is there. So Aline, if you could come and pick the gift for your professor. I believe when you go back to Australia, you can give it to him. So probably one of the next research to be awarded is going to be yours. She's a researcher in Australia, but Rwandan, and working with Rwanda Agriculture Board. So having said that, I can hand over the mic to Dr. Priscilla to close the session, and then we I make few announcements afterwards.
Thank you very much. I think in terms of protocol, when the VC has spoken, the session is closed. So we bring this session to an end, and thank you very much to all the participants.
Can we do a group photo? Can we do a group photo?
group photo for the panel. Christine, you are also part of the panel. I'm told that the principals and the president who are here, and also Janet, you also join the photo. So you can join front row and principals who are here. So please join the next photo. We do it there quickly. Priscilla, you stay there. Maybe you can just move a little bit. Okay, let me join as well. Thank you very much. And this picture marks the end of AAUN Africa Forum 2025. We are having lunch at the hotel, at Serena Hotel, but we also know 50 people have booked to visit the Kigali Memorial for the genocide against Tutsi. So the bus is going to be there from 2:30. So if you have confirmed or have booked that visit, the bus leaves at 2:30. So enjoy your lunch, welcome again, and we thank everyone who made it, be from Africa, Australia, and also colleagues from the University of Rwanda who participated, and other agencies in Rwanda, other universities. We thank you, and we look forward to see you. We have other events. There is Education Collaborative in June. We have Indaba in August. We have the Conference for International Association of Universities in October. So we look forward to see you on one of other events. If not, come to collaborate with our people. So enjoy your lunch and also the visit to the memorial in the afternoon.
I probably would have just ignored, 'cause shit you couldn't never last. Didn't think that I deserved